Alright, we are back. Sorry about that, everyone. Some sort of strange technical settings with my obs, so I apologise. Now, you can join us for the Australian Esports University League. It's the Dota 2 competition here, Season 1 for 2021 of this prestigious university competition. I am the Wandering Bard, and tonight we're revisiting some teams that I'm quite familiar with. You will be as well if you've watched this Uni League before. We've got the UQ Ultra Chads and the QUT Refugees. They were the highlight matchup of Week 4, and then coming up after that, immediately after that, we have a second best of two. This week, Week 5's highlight of LoonyMelb, that's the University of Melbourne, against USYD's Paid Actors. So, four really proud universities, proud teams that have a long history in this competition, and of course, we're only able to have such a competition that can sustain these sorts of rivalries thanks to our sponsors, especially Chatime, our primary sponsors for Season 1 of 2021. So, as mentioned, these are going to be replay casts. We are going back to the highlight matches. We'll just jump right in as a result. Don't need to be any further delays. But, while we're loading in, we will, of course, shout out a couple more of our sponsors. In addition to Chatime, we are, of course, sponsored by Indomie. They are our food sponsor. The yin to the yang that is bubble tea, you know, your prolific gamer snacks, keeping everyone fueled up and ready to go. And then, of course, we have our hardware sponsors, including RIGGaming, who offer what it takes to win. They have some of the best headsets at all levels, delivering superior audio for competitive gamers. And of course, as well, we can't leave out our last sponsor, AOC, who provide the monitors. So we've got audio and sound, we've got food and drink. Everyone is in here. We'll go into more detail about those sponsors later on in the cast. But for now, we have Refugee and UQ in their first of two matches tonight, first of two maps, immediately launching into the banning phase. This was last week, so it will not be on the new patch. Of course, Dawnbreaker patch having significantly altered Dota 2 since its release. But, patch or no, Captain's Mode has yet to see any seismic shakeups. Instead, we're seeing, teams mostly respect banning each other's heroes and focusing on whatever drafts they perfected towards the latter point of the previous patch. So, we open with the bans on AA and Nyx from Refugee Esports, while the Ultra Chads lead off with a Venomancer ban and are now taking their time with a secondary ban. You can start out by banning a hero like Venomancer if you really don't want to play against it, or if you know that a player on the opposing team is quite proficient. That's especially important in a league like the Uni League because, of course, there is quite often a skill gap between players on the individual teams. No one's bad at Dota here, but there are some players here from the very upper echelons of the Oz Dota scene, while there are others who are sort of normally not playing in the same matches as them. So maybe there's an opportunity for you to really hate out a specific player if you know they are the all-star for their team. There's also the question of, what your opponent might be looking to pick based on those bans. The Ultra Chads, that's Gachi on the drafter's seat there, notices the ban on the Ancient Apparition, and he chooses to ban out the Huskar. So actually, maybe this was on the most recent patch, because Huskar has become all the rage since the Dawnbreaker patch released. Of course, Hero's been only getting buffs now for quite some time. And, the Shard buff that he received pushed him over the top. That being said, a strong hero either way, and would be way too strong if one of the obvious counters in the AA was removed from the pool. Huskar, Alchemist, a couple of other heroes, the ones that you normally think of being shut down by AA, but there is another one, Morphling. You can't ban them all. These tanky HB/regen-based heroes that the Ice Blast counters so effectively are much more powerful in the early draft phases when you go ahead and just ban the AA out straight away. Now, Ice Frog, in his wisdom, has finally, over the last few years, added more items and spells that can help to reduce healing, or otherwise counteract the kind of survivability a hero like Morphling brings to the table. But the Chads are really going to have to put on their thinking hat now to make sure that they do arm themselves with those remaining tools, because there may be even fewer of them available after Refugee get done with this second banning phase, and you don't want to be giving a Morphling too much room to work. This is one of the highest skill ceiling heroes in Dota 2, of course, and there are all sorts of deadly combinations it can be played alongside. The Sand King that Refugee have already picked up, for instance. Morphling can purchase Naganims at some point, morph into Sand King, and have a 1200, I think it is, range Burrow Strike, a very, very long initiating stun as well as an invisibility sandstorm. Like, those two abilities alone make the Morphling so much more powerful when he just effectively has those in his kit. Earthshaker, of course, another famous combination, also contributing to mobility and burst damage. And the hero's just damn good on its own. At times, a good Morphling player makes you wonder why the hero, still exists in its current form. But that's not the only hero in Dota 2 that can be made to shine. Pangolier has been picked up by the Ultra Chads. Not necessarily a counter to Morphling or Sand King, but a very powerful hero that many players in the Australian scene have really taken a liking to as a 3 or a 4 position, sometimes even a 2. And while it does not, directly counter Morphling with its normal teamfighting spell, the Rolling Thunder, the lane harassment provided by a Pangolier whacking away with Lucky Shot procs can be very powerful. And a core Pangolier, or even a relatively farm support Pangolier, has quite high and very long-range magical burst damage. You fire off the Swashbuckle every few seconds. If you happen to roll a proc of your Javelin or other items that can proc additional magic damage that work with that spell, a Morphling who is morphed fully agility and relying on very high armor to save him could be caught out. So both teams, starting off their drafts with heroes that work well together, but also an eye to how they will interplay when we come to the team fights. And now, what I'm really interested to see from this next phase of Refugees draft is what this Morphling is intended to do, because it's a hero that 95% of the time you'd say is going to be in the one position. It's going to be the carry role, the main farming hero, the star of your team. Maybe out of the mid lane, but either way it gets that farm priority. But most times you pick up a Morphling, it's not in the first pick phase. So is this potentially a flex Morphling, or is this a core where they're going to have a secondary core that's of equal emphasis? Should the Morphling be too heavily countered? Should the Ultra Chads tunnel vision too much on countering that hero? Are Refugee waiting in the wings to punish them with something else that's equally likely to carry the game? Or at least take the heat off of Morphling? It's been a while since we saw offlane morph. The changes to Adaptive Strike over time have made that build less viable. But you could still easily just run it as a safe laner and have a different mid, play it as a mid and have a different safe lane. Even if a hero like Morphling is capable of doing it all for your team, it's so much easier to play when that burden is not entirely on your shoulders. And I believe Elite is both the mid laner and drafter for Refugee, so it's possible that, he set himself this task of playing the mid lane from the outset with a known hero, playing through possible counters and carrying from where to go. But we would like to believe there's a bit more depth to it than that. The Refugee Esports squad, they have a history of doing well in this event, and you don't do that by opening with your sole carry in the first phase most of the time. So we'll see what that draft has in store. In the meantime, bans in the second phase. We've seen Puck, AM, and OD all removed by Refugee Esports, which kind of again pushes me towards the thought that this might be a mid Morphling. Puck and OD, probably the two strongest mid laners of the patch. Anti-Mage, just a decent Morphling counter, both in terms of 1v1 fights. He's quite powerful. Morphling can't really stand and trade when his mana's getting burned. But also, Anti-Mage has the flexibility, mobility, and scaling to keep up with Morphling, pretty much whatever Morphling does. So, easier to remove that hero, not have to worry about it. And then we also have, on the Chad side, they've banned out Bloodseeker, which of course is a natural Pangolier counter, and they've picked Grimstroke, another hero that can instantly disable the Pangolier's ultimate. So good job to protect their own pick there. And they've also banned out the Bristleback and Dazzle combo. Very powerful offlane duo, very powerful sustain-based duo. They don't want Morphling to be part of a multiple tanky core lineup, because right now the Chads, they're not lacking in burst damage. Grimstroke and Lena do very powerful spell damage, as does Pangolier, but none of these heroes are in the upper echelons of consistent damage output, especially physical damage output, which makes sense. Magic damage is generally more effective against the Morphling, and they have very good control for this Sand King, even in his Sandstorm. Grimstroke and Lena both have ground-targeted nukes and stuns. The silence from the Grimstroke, the best silence in the game by my money, is going to be very effectual against all of these heroes. Mirana being picked up is another very mobile hero. Could be the core, but more likely to be a support. Obviously, as a support, naturally roams around the map, sets up kills in different lanes with the Sacred Arrow, the long-range stun. Generally, the better this hero's skill window, that the ability to capitalize on it, depends on how many of your lanes have stuns in them, have kill potential, can set up that arrow. So Sand King, that's one. Morphling, obviously likely to be in a dual lane. You could pick a different support that is able to back the Morphling up and provide a lengthy stun, something like an Ogre. It's been very popular. But the Chads, they go for an Axe. Great pickup against the Morphling. Has the opportunity to land a BKB piercing disable at all stages of the game, even through a Lincoln Sphere. There's no defensive item that will save you from an Axe call, apart from your teammate buying a 7,000 gold Wind Waker. Something I have yet to really see happen live in a competitive game. So that's a reliable way to get on top of the Morphling and hold him there for at least a few seconds in the later game. And should you catch a Morphling on low health, Axe can deploy the Culling Blade to just kill him. Just cull the Morph down. They banned out the Dazzle, so they're, they're sort of counter-picking a hero they already banned. But Axe in general is going to be a threat to Morph both in the laning phase, assuming this is a safe lane Morph, and later on in the fights. There's potential for a real nasty disable chain going on here. If Axe blinks in, already bearing Grimstroke's Inkswell, by the time the somewhat short duration of Berserker's Call is over, that's when the Inkswell stun detonates, and you're stunned by that. Then you could be LSA'd by Lina, you could be rolled on by Pangolier. Depending on how many heroes are here, this stun train can last a long time. So, all three of the heroes at Refugee are picked right now tend to rely on a mobility spell to get themselves out of trouble, and the Chads are just threatening that with a lot of crowd control and burst. Again, lacking in sustained damage, I'd be surprised to, but happy to see a core Axe that focused on some of the aggressive Axe talents. IceFrog's been teasing players for a while now with a series of talent upgrades for Axe, which allow you to proc his defensive counter helix aggressively by auto-attacking, so implying that you should build an Assault Cuirass, build some attack speed, more normal carry-type items that Axe normally deploys. I don't think it's really at its peak yet in terms of desirability. Most people are just very happy to play Axe the way Axe has already been played. But, maybe this is the time where the Chads can bust it out. Meanwhile, in the Refugees, they've gone back for the Razor. Great counter pick, considering we've seen 2 melee cores already. Pangolier is decent at breaking the static link, which, of course, when you think about every hero's signature ability, Razor is one of those heroes that really leans on one factor. All the rest of his kit is to enable the static link gameplay. Static link is what his opponents are thinking about. It's what Razor's thinking about. It's going to counteract really heavily, and that does maybe mean that we're going to see a mid-Morphling after all. The Refugees have seen the Axe offlane pick. They've seen, safe lane Morphling is going to be up against an Axe Grimstroke. Best to just dodge that one. So we're likely to see a safe lane Razor that can discourage any of that aggression. But it is interesting. If the Chads could still feasibly pick a mid, a carry, or an offlaner. Or a support. This could be something like safe lane Axe or safe lane Pangolier. It could be a mid lane Lina, and it could be a support Pangolier. It could be a support Pangolier, an offlane Axe, a mid Lina, and they still need their carry. So their draft has been remained flexible right to the very last pick, which is quite powerful. Refugees, they've banned out carries though. They've removed Ursa and Wraith King, and then they've gone in and picked Abaddon. So they've removed the tanky carries and the hard laning carries from the equation. They're the carries that are the best at wearing down a single hero, which is important because Mirana roaming around the map as she tends to means that you're not likely to be contesting or providing lane presence in those lanes to discourage harassment. So the heroes that can build up that kind of harassment pressure over time and drive heroes out of lane very easily, Ursa just hitting with the Fury Swipes, AM with the Mana Burn, or indeed Slark, as Gachi is picked up with the Essence Shift, are very powerful against this sort of draft. They've left Slark in the pool, which is kind of funny because Gachi, of course, very happy to pick it up after all of those other heroes have been removed. No Monkey King, which would have been the other pick I would have liked to see in this situation, but the Chads, they ended up getting sort of what they wanted. They've got a team of very heavy control and very heavy stuns, and then a single carry to pull out the consistent damage, to out-carry the Morphling to some degree. He's well equipped to do so. There's not a lot of control for the Slark on the side of Refugee. Sand King Burrow Strike is going to get negated by the Dark Pact. Apart from that, they're just kind of hoping that the Razor, I guess, can link this Slark and stop him from doing his dark, dirty work. But, that's one very strong counter. A good Slark player can play around that. And that's what the Chads are going to hope out of Gachi. A really strong Slark 1 position performance. Because if he falls down, they don't have that much to fall back on. Just a reminder, if you are casually joining us, you are joining the highlight stream of the Australian Esports University League Dota 2 competition. We've got the best match from Week 4 and Week 5 of the competition here tonight, live on air. We're going to be watching, well, not live, you're live with me. And we are going to be watching through those games for the next few hours, so sit back, enjoy your Chatime and your Indomie, watch on your AOC monitor, listen through your Rig headphones, and get ready for some really classic Oz Dota. Oh. Okay, we've just had an error with the replay, I think, but that's alright. We will simply relaunch the replay and jump right back to where we were. I guess that's the advantage of having it be a demo stream. There's really relatively low stakes when something weird happens like that. We can just jump ahead. And here we are. As I was saying, watching them run out of the base onto the map. So, just to recap the teams, we have, for the side of the UQ Ultra Chads, we've got Dunker Dunker on the Axe, we've got Infamous Amos on the Pangolier, we have Pondos on the Grimstroke, Oogway, Master Oogway on the Lina, and of course Gachi on the Slark. This is a stacked squad right here. The Ultra Chads, they do live up to their name. The Refugees, though, we've seen them before, put in some real work as well. Elite's going to be providing, as I said, that captain's performance on the Morphling out of the mid lane. We've got an Abaddon here. Again, apologies. I'm not going to attempt that name. But we've got Tau on the Mirana. We've got Ethan, 8877 on the Sand King. And Slayer, Legend Slayer / Slain on the Razor. Which will it be today? I'm not sure, but the Razor has a very important role to play as well. If the Slark is the key hero for the Ultra Chads, then the Razor, arguably alongside that Morphling, is the key hero for the Refugees, because they won't be able to rely on just controlling and burning down these carries. They're going to have to rely on fighting them in a more nuanced micro fashion. They open up this in a less nuanced fashion, just copying a huge Lina stun to the backline as they attempt to brawl over the runes. This is on the new patch. These are the new rune positions. They prompt these 5v5 fights, and this one is going fairly evenly right now, but Elite is going to go down. Pondos with a double kill. Gachi might die as well, so both teams in a real threat of losing their major carries. The Sand King is trying to run down, and the tower blocks the Sand King from approaching for the Burrow Strike kill, but it fires off a lethal bullet that finishes off Gachi's Slark. So both teams losing their primary farming heroes here. I would say they're safe laners, but as mentioned, the presence of that Axe has made the safe lane too hostile, and if Elite ever intended to send this Morphling to the safe lane, it's possible that it was always just a bit of a bluff. It is mid laning against the Lina, so Elite versus Oogway, that's a fairly high skill mid matchup. Meanwhile, in the top lane, we're going to see Abaddon and Razor really pressuring that Slark, shutting him down from minute 1. And in the bottom lane, the Mirana, not roaming just yet, providing quite a surprisingly powerful safe lane combo with the Sand King. So this Axe Pangolier duo, which would be so threatening to lanes that did not have a strong lane presence, the ability for both those heroes to just walk at you, intentionally draw your creep aggro and run you down with auto attacks, won't be seen as much. But Gachi, speaking of running people down with auto attacks, I really thought that Abaddon was away, but Slark, he stretches out those long fishy knives and cuts down the Abaddon for a first kill of the laning phase. That's that Orb of Venom doing work there, along with the Essence Shift. So Gachi already getting his way through level 2, looking strong right now. We have Ethan on the bottom lane now. The Sand King has that level 2 up, which is good to see. Sitting in that Sandstorm. Of course, sitting in the Sandstorm under a Sentry Ward, but the Sandstorm alone, like, the damage is just as powerful as the Invis for discouraging this aggression. On top lane, though, the Abaddon stepped out of lane for a second to pick up an item off the Courier, and the Razor, Legend Slayer, didn't get the memo, just stayed in the lane there. They sniff out that his support's missing, and Pondos and Gachi do not hesitate. They go for the kill. Easy pounce into Inkswell combo. That's a dead Razor, so I said that they would need to shut down this Slark, and of course his hero is naturally quite strong at doing so, but I don't know. That's not how we wanted this laning phase to begin for the Refugees. They're going to have to make it work for them from here. This is a nice static link from Legend Slayer. He steals a lot of Gachi's damage, but he can't get even onto Pondos. The support looked like he was there for the taking on low hit points, but this is the issue that I saw in their team in the draft immediately. They lack so much control. Their only stuns are this unreliable Mirana Arrow and the Sand King Burrow Strike, and both of those are in the same lane on the other side of the map. Granted, stuns aren't usually what you need against Slark in the laning phase. Of course, he has the Dark Pact to skill up that makes them very hard to utilize. But it's going to be hard to get on and kill anybody on the side of the Ultra Chads without those stuns. You know, when you lack crowd control, you can't make fights happen on your own terms, at least by ambushing people. So your only choice is to run at objectives and hope that the enemy fights you and that you are stronger. We'll see whether that ends up being the case. Elite has taken a bunch of bounty runes, but here in the bottom lane, Ethan887, is the bounty that will be claimed. He's just locked in a desperate duel with the Dire as they chase him around and eventually wear him down, so... I mentioned this is how the Axe Pangolier lane likes to function. They're just going to run at you. They're not spending a lot of mana. Axe occasionally casting a Battle Hunger for a slow. But the Pangolier is just tapping to get those lucky shot procs. And if you try and trade in autos, Axe will pull your creeps onto him and spin you down with the counter helix. So all you can really do is what we saw Ethan doing there. Walk around in circles and run away. But, you know, if you're slowed down and you get hit enough times, you can only run for so long. That being said, one other advantage of putting Sand King in the safe lane is that even if he's not strong enough to win the lane, his farm is not essential. We're watching the mid lane farm, and right now that's going great. But on top lane, the Razor, he's really struggling. He was meant to be covering the situation at top lane with the Slark here, but instead he's really just feeding the Slark extra gold. He's a bit of a big range creep right now. It is true that he's leading the Slark on CS, but if you add the couple of kills on Razor, I think we'll find Gachi ahead overall, and certainly on net worth. We see the Abaddon trying to get aggressive in the Razor's absence, but he may have gotten too aggressive there. Charging out of the tower. Actually, Pondos is going to pay with his life, but Gachi gets the kill. He's the mastermind of it all. He eggs his support on, and I'm sure Pondos is more than happy to exchange his life. So, things right now could be going better for the refugees. It's 3-7. A small, modest gold lead to the side of the Ultra Chads, but that could yet blossom, and I'm primarily worried about this Slark. Not only has he already stolen 5 permanent agility from his Essence Shift kills, this early skill point's paying off hugely, but he's only going to get more and more control of this lane as he gains levels, and if you don't shut down the Slark in the laning phase, he can go into the jungle, and this team, as I was mentioning, singularly lacking in the ability to punish him. You know, he won't even be really threatened to... by stuns. That means he can use his Dark Pact as a farming skill to clear creep camps quickly. He won't mind using his ult to regenerate if need be. It's all going to be really tough for the Radiant. They had to win these lanes, or at least have a quick plan for transitioning out of them, maybe into some cheaper core items, so they can get to threaten some towers. Because you know that Gachi will be farming. It's about what you can do in the meantime. And Uguay, that's a big blow. That's something they, really just could not afford to have. Elite was their one position to rival the Slark, and now even he is having a hard time. So we check across to the net worth. Yeah, that's a more realistic picture. 3 Dire Cores at the top of the net worth chart. Not by a lot, but that lead is now above 1,000 gold. They're pulling ahead as time goes on. And I'm not sure what the Radiant can do to change that. I think the best they can do right now is free up this Mirana to move around. This is why you don't normally see Mirana as a safe lane support. She's just not able to provide that much sitting in lane. Most of what she provides is psychological pressure, and an arrow might land at any time. And between those arrow cooldowns, or if you don't have a good opportunity to throw the arrow, if you can't maybe kill the hero after you stun them, you're better off moving through the jungle, stacking, maybe farming a little, and setting up that kill potential on multiple lanes. Instead, we've seen her pinned to the bottom lane to protect this Sand King, who still died a few times, and is going to have maybe a moderately quick blink dagger, but certainly not a fast one. And, I want to see them get more out of that hero. So if they can free her up now, just accept that Ethan's, entered the solo part of his laning. Maybe they can get some more done, open up the mid lane for kills or something like that. Maybe they can get Gachi Slark. We see here the Abaddon has been stepping into the jungle to try and pull Pondos and Gachi apart. Pondos is a lot more vulnerable, gets really walked down by this Abaddon, who has an Orb of Corrosion on top of the Curse of the Avernus, a greedy start for that support, as opposed to, Pondos, who's just, as you can see here, buying salves to keep Gachi farmed up, keep him healed in the lane so he can continue to hit the creeps without spending his own gold, which he's using to build, it appears, Falcon Blade into Diffusal into the start of an Aghanims, possibly. This is the new Slark Aghanims. We are on the new patch after all. I guessed wrong at the beginning of this draft. So we're going to potentially see what that looks like, because Gachi is just crushing right now. He gets another kill on the Abba. He does lose Infamous Amos, his Pangolier support who rotated up. And now he's going to lose his Abaddon, his other support, Pondos, on the Grimstroke as Elite finally decides enough is enough. He's done with his static laning phase. He TP's top on the Morphling, gets that quick kill with the Magical Burst. But there's not much else for him to do. Gachi hits level 6 from that. He's up to 6 permanent agility steal. And if you're not going to burst him 100 to 0, then you may as well leave this man alone, because he is going to be healing up very rapidly outside of your vision with the Shadow Dance. It's up to the Razor, in theory, to stop Gachi from getting easy farm in the lane by simply static linking him every time he appears and just challenging him to leave the lane with the stolen damage. But with how things have been going, I'm sure that there's a little bit of trepidation on behalf of Legend Slayer to step to Gachi like that and challenge him directly. Meanwhile, we see Master Uguay still working towards his first major item. It's going to probably be a Yules. Very, very common for Lina. Obviously a great offensive and defensive tool. Meanwhile, on the bottom lane, we see that Dunker has completed a Vanguard and is now using that to effortlessly farm the creep wave behind the tier 1 tower. Normally, this would be a good way to take the tower, but this is the other advantage, I suppose, of putting Sand King down here. Instead of taking a lot of damage from the creeps that he's tanking and becoming pressure for the axe, or allowing the creeps to deal a lot of damage to the tower, where that then becomes vulnerable to the axe, the Sand King is just as good at farming these waves by himself as the axe is. And so these two heroes are sort of in a happy stalemate, each farming each other's creep waves on cooldown. Axe perhaps getting a little bit more from his ability to roam up into the jungle there. But we see now Ethan is going to pull the creeps up into a large camp and try and escalate this economic game plan. Since neither team seems very interested in interfering with them, they're both likely to get their blink daggers up at whatever timing they like, although Axe is still not going for one. Ethan nearly has his. That'll be one to watch. Meanwhile, at top though, Gachi is not waiting around for the Radiant to pick up items. He's going for another kill on Legend Slayer. Pondos steals that one. A little bit tilting, but, you know, he does deserve some money. Great support job up in this lane so far. Tao is going to fire off an arrow. It's a great arrow. It hits Infamous Amos mid swashbuckle, which is certainly a feather in the cap. A little bit of an achievement unlocked for Mirana there. It doesn't help the Abba, though. He goes down again to Gachi. So Gachi just rocking the house right now with 5, 1, and 3. That one death was at the 5-on-5 rune fight. So during the sort of post-horn, the real game section of this Dota battle, he has not died at all, and he is farming his direct laning opponent. Speaking of getting farmed, Infamous Amos steps into a lane he maybe shouldn't have. Elite is going for this kill. He dives all the way under the tower, though, and runs into multiple dire heroes. Now the power of Morphling protects him. He absorbs the Laguna's the Laguna from Uguay, as well as Pondos's nukes, and in fact teleports out. So that was a bit of a calculated bait, I guess. I'm sure that he knew there would be easy rotations if he dived in another tier 1, but he needs to feel strong on the map right now, and the opponents need to feel that he is strong. Like I said, Elite really looking to lead from the front here, and that's just what he did with that play. Even though he didn't get the kill, he's drawn multiple heroes to mid lane. That's a little bit of pressure off of Legend Slayer. Now he can maybe get a couple of items up, recover a little. And, of course, we are always making space for Ethan at the bottom. He's actually used that space to farm a Blink Dagger, which has come faster than I thought. After the Pangolier left the lane, he was able to get back in there and start just sandstorming down the waves. So now maybe this safe lane Sand King is going to pay off after all. It's all about this first epicenter, the Blink reveal. I mean, they know that he does have it, but at the same time, it's going to be a devastating early fight if he can land a multiple hero burrow epi off of it. There's not really tools on the dire side to deal with that right now, other than correct positioning. Maybe if Pondos is standing far enough apart from the rest of his team, he'll be able to land a Phantom's Embrace. But first he'd have to have it skilled. He actually doesn't optimize the other skills in his build to combo best with Gachi. He throws out the ultimate there, the Soul Binding, to try and hold those heroes together, prevent their pursuit of him, but it doesn't work out. It was mostly a half-hearted effort to survive to buy time for his teammates to get away, which they do, so he makes the support play and sacrifices himself. It's still a free kill for the Sand King, so you know what? Far from the worst that could happen. Uguay is farming kind of slowly on this Lina, the poorest core on his team, behind the Axe, well behind Gachi's Slack, but isn't everybody. I suppose it's just, you know, there's been a lot of action in the early game. It sort of feels like, oh, well, Uguay, step it up, but it more says about how fast Gachi has been farming and how much extra gold has been sort of ferried to his lane, unfortunately, by Radiant heroes, that he is looking relatively fat. Got that Falcon Blade up, and the Treads, the Orb of Venom, and now half of a Diffusal Blade. That first Blade of Alacrity, second one close on the way. Once that Diffusal's online, I mean, I'm not going to dictate what Gachi's going to do, but we could easily see him start moving around the map and looking for kills as he attempts to assemble that Aghanims, which, to remind everybody, has been changed. So the Aghanim Scepter is still the Pounce, 2 charges of Pounce and increases Pounce range. I was thinking of the new Aghanim Shard for Slark, one of many heroes to get that change in the recent patch, or that upgrade. Depth Shroud sort of allows you to throw the Slark ulti on the ground in a specific spot. Very powerful disengage tool for someone getting potentially initiated on by the Morphling, or who needs to hide from, say, gets arrowed by Mirana. You can throw the Depth Shroud over them. A really, really powerful ability. I wonder if it also heals with the Shadow Dance, but we'll see how that works out later on. Infamous Amos showing us how the Rolling Thunder works in case we needed a refresher. It's a nice 2-hero stun. Can he get the follow-up? Of course, there's a little bit of a skill-based ulti, and it's a tricky one in this position. Didn't have an easy wall to bounce off. Settled for just a 1-2 stun. Drew out the Abaddon ult, so the borrowed time is on cooldown. And with the reveal of Tau in the lane of the Mirana, Gachi and they just decided they didn't want any of that. They're happier to let Dunker and Pondos potentially make a play on Ethan in the bottom lane, rather than demanding they come up. In fact, Gachi's come down to help them make this play. He's bringing sentry wards of his own. He's an industrious farmer. He spent that money to make sure he gets this kill. Ethan, he waits for the pounce to end, and he burrows away out of his own sandstorm. He knows that the jig was up. He wasn't going to be able to hide in the sand there, and he successfully evades them thanks to his Blink Dagger and Burrow Strike, so wastes the time not only of the offlaner and the 4 position there, but the carry. Unfortunately, one target that cannot run away from Gachi is the tier 1 tower. He's not the fastest hitter of it presently, but thanks to his various items he's picked up, he'll be doing enough damage. And with the axe, those creeps are no threat to their push. So it's up to the Radiant now to descend on this tier 1 if they want to see it defended. Elite, he won't be descending anywhere unless maybe he feels his DD rune gives him enough strength to tangle. He does have a Ghost Scepter, so that initial item is up, providing some very useful Morphling stats, as well as a defensive active that's going to come in handy against Gachi, because now he has in fact come to the fight. Dunker, I don't know if he saw the DD or not, but he fired off the call instinctively, and he has just enough health, just enough time, and just enough spin procs to drop the Culling Blade. So Elite made the decision to come to that fight. I was in two minds about whether or not it was the right call. It looked good for a second, and then it looked really bad. Axe getting a little bit lucky on the spin RNG, and then having the fast fingers to chop the Morphling's passes for his head off. Now, his team, though, they won't let that, cutting off that head of that snake remove their team fight lust entirely, but maybe they should have, because they just lose 2 heroes chasing Gachi out of the fight. This Slark has been baiting them all game. He does so again now, and that's a 3-for-nothing exchange. It's just Tau running around, and yeah, now that is a 4-for-nothing exchange. Morphlings respawn, but brutal fight. They were down already. Now they're down 6k. Might even be more as the effects of that team fight are fully felt. Gachi's farming up the Radiant jungle now. He appears to have purchased the full diffusal. It's flying out. So now he's moving at this Abaddon super aggressively. You can see how close he is to the tier 1 tower. He's still looking to make an aggressive play. This is a fat Slark. And what's worse for the Radiant is that now the rest of the Chad's team, they appear to be catching up. So Elite, he immediately senses the danger from Gachi, knocks him back with the Strength Adaptive Strike, and begins running for the hills. He turns around, though. This Abaddon really wants to fight. The borrow time was available, so he pops it now. Runs after Gachi. Gachi's a hard kill, but they managed to get onto Uguay instead. In fact, they almost get Gachi. They do get Gachi. Great gameplay. They managed to lock him down there. He purged the Abaddon silence, stuck around for a little while. I'm not sure why, just trying to exact some sort of trade for the Lina. I think he just slightly overestimated his ability to get out, and he thought that any damage he dealt was free damage. It is the kind of hero that you like to get those early trades on. You jump out at low HP, heal up with your ult and reset, but it's very difficult to simply get away and reset when your opponents have a Blink Dagger, Sand King, max range Burrow Strike, finds Gachi on the hill, brings down the fat Slug, and now Morphling is let back up into contention for not only top 3 cores, but top 1 core. And as the tower goes down, he will take that esteemed position as the most farmed hero on the map. Sand King and Razor, they're the concern. They're still lagging behind, as well as this Abaddon and Mirana. I just see them as naturally a bit less able to get into the game. They're heroes that, are quite fragile in the fights. They don't tend to pick up a lot of free kills. They don't have a lot of hit points if they're vulnerable to getting gone on. And their abilities are tricky to use, particularly Mirana. Like this Sacred Arrow, she's not maxing it, which is normal and good here. But if you leap in to try and Starfall, you are very likely to die. Basically every fight in which you do that. Gachi, speaking of likely to die, picks off Elite's Courier at a distance thanks to this deep die ward on the high ground, spot of that coming over, and now he's going to try and make it 2 from 2. He's just eyeing off the Morphling. They can almost see each other. Now they definitely can see each other, but Elite had a bottled invis. Gachi, though, he's packing sentries, and there's a ton of sentries already on this lane, because this is where the Sand King was playing. Elite knows that. He doesn't push his luck and try to go for some cute play with that invisibility rune. He just uses it to scuttle into the trees and teleport scroll back to mid as fast as he can. So, again, heads up play. That's going to keep him at the top of the chart for a while on net worth. But can he carry this game alone? Infamous Amos pursuing Ethan Sanking at the top lane. He blinks out, but that just leaves the Razor to die under the tier 1. Abaddon's coming back, gets off the shield. It's not good enough. Dunker culls him, and now will they find more? The Mirana ult is temporarily covering them. The Moonlight Shadow making it difficult to initiate. Amos has a sentry, though. They are well equipped. These Chads, they will not let any invisibility stop them, but Ethan is going to stop them. The stopping power of Epicenter level 2 deployed, melting Infamous Amos in just a second. Gachi, though, he's arrived at the fight, and now, with that major ultimate out of the way, the damage to kill him looks to be missing. He is going very aggressively onto Elite's Morphling right now, who's popped that Ghost Scepter, has no other defensive abilities. He's out of mana from the Defusal, and locked down by the Pounce. He dies to Uguay's Laguna, just making sure, And now they are going to pursue after the rest of the fresh meat that's on that table. Gachi, okay, he doesn't get that kill either. Pondos takes it. Little bit of team flaming, I'm sure, going on in the UChad's voice call right now as Gachi, is denied his hero kill gold that he has so valiantly earned. But he does get their agility, 11 permanently stolen now, as if this Slark needed any more of an edge over his counterparts. Meanwhile, we can see Infamous Amos rocking 5 charges on the Urn of Shadows. If he chose to upgrade that to a Spirit Vessel, it would further damage the Morphling's chances in this game, further limit even the potential of the Abaddon to help out with that heal reduction that it carries. But for now, the Dire are happy to just farm up. It seems like there were some stacks in the Radiant Triangle. Those are now gone. Dunker is going to be the beneficiary of that gold. And instead we see Legend Slayer, just sort of sadly hitting an unstacked neutral camp at the bottom side of the Radiant half of the map. It's been a tough game so far. The lead has sat at around 6k. The last couple of fights cancelling out, so they're hanging in there. But the Refugees, they need to do better than hang in there. And they need to do better than this for sure. They give up Legend Slayer basically for nothing. He catches a disable. That Axe Call we've been worried about for a while. Dunker with the Blink Dagger can land it more easily than ever. And it does result in the death of the Razor. No immediate burst mobility like the Morphling has. No ability like Morph that can heal him up effectively while he's disabled. He's simply stunned down and then culled by the Axe. So this Axe pick, it hasn't been a conventional part of the patch, but it is working out very well for their current strategy, making sure these heroes die, making it, honestly hard to feel the influence of some of the heroes on the Radiant team, particularly the Abaddon. Gachi is still progressing towards that Aghanim Scepter that we've known he's been building since the start of the game. Uguay finished up that Yules, and you can tell by that race car speed he's packing that he also finished a Boots of Travel. Has that handy-dandy Essence Ring that's super useful when you consider that your opponent's main damage dealers are still burst damage dealers right now. They are looking to burst Gachi right now. Ethan finds him, but because his initial blink was not on the money, Gachi had time to spot the Sand King, anticipate what was about to happen, and deploy the Dark Pact. So maybe either a cleaner blink was needed, or if you missed the first blink, maybe you can wait a moment, try and bait out that Dark Pact. It does have to be pressed preemptively, but not what happened there in that case. And so instead, we've got the Radiant. This is what I talked about, right? Like they were trying to make a play to catch Gachi there, and credit to Ethan for buying the Blink Dagger and now a 4-stuff to try and make sure he's always in position to Burrow Strike, but that's their only stun. And I feel like they kind of realized how difficult it is for them to make a gank successful without any setup. And so instead they chose to move the hero's top and take out a tier 1 tower. Again, the targets that can't run away. Those are the ones that the Radiant in particular want to find. They've found one of them so far. We've actually also got the tier 1 in mid, so 2 down. Many more to go, but it's a start. Unfortunately for them, we've seen Gachi take back the top position on the net worth chart. I don't think he's going to relinquish it so easily. In fact, he is delaying that Aghanim Scepter. It looked like a lot of fun, but he's decided that winning is more fun, and Gachi is going to go for a fast BKB. The Dire, they're pushing up to the tier 2 here, but they fake back from the tower as though the Radiant might be baited into defending. Even now, Uguay's trying to check the sides. Infamous Amos is chilling way back in the trees, hoping they're going to underestimate the number of heroes deployed here. The Radiant are having none of it. They are not coming to defend this tower, and so realizing that, the Chads just decide to polish it off quicker. They reveal their strength. They gun that tower down. The Radiant, who tried to take a fight in the neutrals while that was happening, these Refugees are going to need a safe haven soon. Gachi, he survives through the initial burst, pops the Shadow Dance, runs away. Uguay surviving as well thanks to his Essence Ring. There's just too much healing, too much survivability on the side of the Dire right now. They're being split apart very effectively by the pursuit of the Radiant, and they will be rewarded with the life of Dunker Dunker, the least mobile of them all. They did also take out the Pangolier, so a little bit of spell misusage and miscommunication does cost the Chads there quite dearly. Yeah, a couple of thousand gold is the tune of the swing, or nearly 2,000 gold, but Gachi survives, and that's what's most important. As long as this hero is continuing to farm up, he's gotten enough of a lead now, or rather gotten to a certain point in the game, gotten far enough into his game plan, that he will remain a threat no matter what. As I see Morphling picking up a Philostone 23 minutes into the game, palming it off onto his team. He certainly doesn't need it. He feels very rich as well, armed with that Ethereal Blade. Now building up into an Aghanims of his own, so he can utilize that full Burrow Strike Aghanim Scepter combo that we talked about during the draft. Big moves from Elite. I like it. Money moves. But what can be done, right? Because like this E-Blade is nice, but it won't answer the real problem here. It's not going to instantly burst the Slark. It's not going to instantly burst the Axe even. You might be able to pick off the Lena or the Grimstroke, but Elite was hoping for more, I'm sure. This has been a little bit slower than he might have wanted on the timing on this item, and now he has to just kind of continue farming with it as a result. Use that Agi that's on the item naturally as he evades another gank upon his own person. Gachi gets in though. They know that he hit the slow from the Diffusal Blade, so Dunker Dunker just blinks on Faith. Infamous Amos, it's a great roll. He absorbs the arrow with the Rolling Thunder. It is magic immune, but it sucks that arrow up. He just crushes it in mid-flight. Look, I think that even a stunned Axe would have been enough to hold the Morphling in place there, but they make absolutely sure that Elite goes down, and now that is their Roshan. Really, really potent stuff for the Chads here. They are establishing their Chadley dominance as they bring the Roshan down. The Sand King is split pushing, so Ethan, he's been quiet for the last however many minutes of the game, it feels like. There haven't been many opportunities where there's been a big team fight that's on good terms, so there hasn't been much window to use the Epicenter. He's just using that time to farm up to nearly 3k gold again, and maybe he can end up with a Shivas or an Aegis or something else that's going to be relevant against the rapidly scaling up Slark of Gachi. He has the full BKB complete now, not deploying it, just holding it, threatening with it, waving it around. Now he goes in on mid. They've leashed the Morphling. They got the call off as well. The Grimstroke, though, he's going to make it hard for them. Can they get this kill? The Rolling Thunder, it's going to hold Elite in place even longer. God, that must be so frustrating. But Elite, he's locked down and down and down and down and down and stunned and killed. And now the rest of his team have to be very careful. They don't want to completely give up position on their tier 2s. They've used the Moonlight Shadow to try and spread it out a little bit more. But, I mean, ultimately, they have to give this one up. They have to let it go. And it looks like that's what they're doing. Tao is the only member anywhere near it now. Just kind of defending the perimeter, drawing Pondos away. He's not considered vital personnel for this tower push. In fact, Dunker, I didn't expect him to catch the bottom, the Mirana. But he did. Just not pressing the leap button fast enough, I suppose. And yeah. Dunker, speaking of establishing dominance, stamps down the Mirana very easily. 5-1 and 8 on the offlane Axe. Very impressive. So now Axe deep in the jungle. The Dire, they are just running roughshod over the Radiant side of the map right now. The Refugees, they're holed up in their base, just trying to hit whatever creeps are available. Elite is still trying to finish that Aghanim Scepter. The Abaddon's going for a wand. That's a bit sad. And we can see that Legend Slayer is building a BKB. Again, slower than they might like or need, but it's good that he has it queued up at all. Will there be a fight here? Amos threatening the Rolling Thunder. He does let it go, so that's been used, but he miscalculates the angle that's being used. Instead, he rolls up the hill and rolls over the Abaddon, who is trying to capture, and then just, out the other side. So just essentially rolls all the way to the mid lane. A little bit of a sad Pangolier ult, but I guess it got you a little bit close to where you theoretically wanted to go, so that's fine. Where he wanted to go, it turns out, is farming the neutrals. Alongside his buddy Dunker. Arrow just kind of missing Gachi, but going onto the catapult, which was probably the intended target, or at least the intended secretary. secondary, I should say. And so now Gachi, I mean, in theory, he has to fall back from the tower, but in practice, he has the Aegis, and who's going to make him? His BKB is on the full 9-second charge. That's right, it got changed down from 10 seconds, if you haven't read that part of the patch notes yet. And yeah, the Chads, I mean, it's hard to pinpoint a single spot where this game really got out of control for the refugees, but suffice to say, it is now 16,000 the gold lead in the favor of the Chads, as they continue to just, you know, muscle the creeps into the base, deny value from their opponents, wait for Slark to get really, really 1v5 kind of strong. As we see Gachi just, you know, continuing to mop up creeps, never relenting. Second on last hits and dies, only to his leader. Actually, sorry, there's way more important things happening. Axe in the midst of all this, he gets nuked down. There's an Ethereal Blade kill on Axe, but the rest of the Radiant, they're going to pay a heavy price. Even Elite is killed right now. The Grimstroke Binding does great work holding him in place and making sure that the enemies have time to wear him down as they have to. And speaking of wearing down, Gachi is pursuing Tau on the bottom. The Mirana, what can they do about her? They go, okay, a little bit of cross purposes, but it works out. And so now with her dead, the way appears to be clear to maybe take the base. And Gachi still has the Aegis. He presumably wants to spend it. So here we go. Here comes the high ground push. Okay, Gachi hits the tower exactly twice before getting bored. He leaps into the fight, fails to establish a connection. Now he's established the wrong kind of connection. He's been damage linked to the Razor. He's continuing to hit the Razor, though. And it looks like he's going to get the kill. Infamous Amos does leap in to help out at the end there, but boy, that's a little alarming. The sheer power of the Gachi Slark on full display as the Aegis expires, regenerating him to full hit points. Most ordinary carries would back up at this point, and maybe Gachi should have! They know that he doesn't have that Aegis, and instantly they blink, burrow, call, E-Blade, W, and burst him to the ground. Really, really smart stuff, making sure he can't get his ultimate off, and now they're looking to punish the rest of the Dire team. The script is being flipped here by the refugees. Infamous Amos, he tries to resist as best he can. He gets off a terrific roll, but it's only going to hold back the Radiant Heroes for so long. In the meantime, okay, it looks like it's held them off for long enough. They weren't that interested in chasing, or rather they chased Pondos and no one else, so they get the Grimstroke kill. But now, what can they transition that into? It's got to be about what you get off the kill, and they have a Morphling. This is going to be the main hero for getting anything off it. As, oh, bit of a blow, tries to fly the Radiant Courier over to the side shop here to buy a plate mail, and can't. So the Dire, they continue to pull ahead, and in fact it's Master Oogway on this laner who's suddenly the top of net worth, just been farming really diligently throughout the whole entire game. Has the Arcane Rune bottled as well on top of everything else. So the mana regen is through the roof here, as well as sick cast range. Really, really strong build on the hero. Speaking of really strong, here comes an initiation onto the Pangolier behind his tier 2. Gets the job done. But, oh, okay, hang on, there may be a coda to this. Dunker fires off the call, traps Tau on the Mirana, and Gachi, he's not satisfied either, pursues after Ethan on the Sand King. He wants this kill, but he won't get it. The Sand King just has too many buttons to press. Just sort of wiggles away from him, eventually gets the Blink Dagger off to, to safety. They're still running from Gachi, but being able to run from Gachi, even from that difficult position, is itself a worrying sign for the Dire, who don't have the... They have decent control, but a lot of it they'd rather someone else cast a spell first, you know? They need someone to help set them up. Right now, it's mostly just Dunker doing that. He casts a Battle Hunger, or actually, he called the ground, his Blink was cancelled, but they go in anyway, even realizing he does not have a Blink Dagger. Very interesting stuff. So this game has really kind of stalled out. Not that many lead increases or swings in the last couple of minutes. Not that many major fights. A couple of heroes getting picked out here or there, but mostly both teams happy to kind of farm and scale, which is new. But we'll see how that one works out. A momentary lull is broken as Ethan blinks in on the Sand King and has the follow-up arrow. This is the power of their team of 5-man stun combo, but that's the power of the Slark against that team. That burrow in arrow is the full extent of their stuns. If Gachi has any time to react at all, he can press that Dark Pact and just be out of there, and then they have nothing left. He's going to find the Abaddon now through the invisibility, running around pretty boldly, expecting there to not be a sentry ward there. Gets caught up, and now the Rolling Thunder is going to make life hard for him. So this is going to make life hard for his teammates who are getting chain stun there. Gachi needs no additional help to finish off the Abaddon, and now crushes Elite. In fact, it was. So rough stuff. Hindsight's 2020. That looked like a great call, but in the end, it did not work out to be the case. And now that might have just sealed the fate of the QUT Esports refugees in this game. The Slark is diving so hard. Gachi wielding that BKB like a bludgeon and attempting to crush his opponents. As we see, okay, oh, Ethan doesn't quite get the epicenter off. Really nice LSA from Uguay, interrupting that. Now Elite, he's left stranded. He doesn't have the Sand King he thought was there for support. He diebacks. He's down for 100 seconds. The Racks are under massive threat now. They may need a buyback from the Razor to even have a chance of defending it. As Uguay finishes a Desolator. Okay. Ethan has deployed the smoke. He's staying a little bit closer than you'd think as the Sand King. Going to try and get around onto a different angle there. And actually, no, just decides the time is right to commit. He goes in the Grimstrike to blow him up, but he doesn't quite get the job done. And that's not something that Pondos or Uguay are going to struggle with. They easily finish him off, as well as the rest of his heroes here. It looks like they fall back into the fountain one by one, desperate to just seek the safety of his healing and damaging lasers. But the Dire are not satisfied with just winning the game. No, they want to do the Dota equivalent of the teabag as well. And they do draw the GG with it. So there you go. Very, very impressive performance from the Big Chads, the Ultra Chads, I should say. They've upgraded from the UQ Big Chads to the highest tier of Chad Ascendancy. They win that game 1. Honestly, it looked like it was never in doubt. They felt in front from start to finish. The enemy lanes had more to prove, and they did not prove as much as they needed to. So the Chads, they're going to be fairly happy with that draft. I wonder whether they just run it back again for Game 2 in the series, or whether we see something completely different out of them when we come back right after this break. Welcome back, everybody. We are live once again here on the highlight replay stream for the Australian Esports University League Dota 2 competition. Of course, we've got a real highlight. We already just saw that was the UQ Ultra Chads up against the QUT Refugee Esports squad. And of course, that was only game 1. So we're about to jump back into the draft for game 2 with the Chads a game up. Of course, in this best of 2 series, the Refugee Esports team will be looking to split the points and avenge themselves after a tough loss. They just got very, very slowly choked off of the map in game 1. The inexorable progress of Gachi's Slark that they let slip through the draft, that ended up haunting them into the late game as they eventually fell to the All-Star Chad squad. But we'll go ahead and unpause this replay. Of course, we are casting from replays tonight. We'll be following up with a match from week 5. Right after this one, but for now, as we get into the early bans and see that the Chads again remove the Venomancer, may as well see the same couple of bans. So it's a good time to plug some of our sponsors. In particular, we've got AOC. They are a long-time sponsor of the University League here. They're the global leader in monitor display technology, and with 50 years of experience delivering the high-quality monitors that they do to millions of customers worldwide. And of course, they supply many of the gamers. We can't say all of them, of course, but many of the gamers in universities and esports clubs that have been developing their potential through the Uni League use AOC monitors, and as well as the equipment and goods provided by our other sponsors like Indomie. God, I could go for some noodles right now. Just talking about the noodles makes me hungry. We won't go into too much more detail about that because, of course, we've got draft picks to bring up. Always more time to talk about the sponsors later on. But let's talk about the heroes. We've got Elite banning out the Pangolier first and the AA second. So we have a new hero joining the ban priority after game 1. And it was not Gachi's Slark. It was infamous Amos, who appears to have earned the ire of the QUT refugees with that Pangolier pick. It's been removed. No one wants to deal with that anymore. And the Chads, they don't mind. They ban out the Oracle and the Venomancer, and they go right back to their pick 1 from the first game, the Grimstroke. Such a powerful hero, preferenced by many players in the Australian pro scene right now. Up and down the OADL, the LPL, all these other competitions. This hero has reigned supreme for a patch or more, and I think he only got buffed in the Dawnbreaker patch, so unlikely to see that end anytime soon. But here's the Huskar. So the Chads, they intentionally left this through, right? Because in game 1, the Apparition was banned in the opening ban phase, and the Chads sniffed that out and they said, right, you're trying to shield a Huskar pick from us. We're not going to allow that. We're going to ban out your Huskar. And with the Huskar ban, they went back to, the Elite Morphling draft. That did not end up working out. So in game 2, with the AA banned again, you would assume that the Chads would simply re-ban the Huskar, but they don't. They ban the Oracle. And so what do you know? Here's Huskar, picked right up, the winningest hero of the current patch. Really, really dominant stuff. Heavily, heavily banned in the Divine skill bracket where all these players mostly occupy. Granted, without the Oracle, it's less powerful, but Elite goes back and grabs the Omni Knight, a different partner in crime this time for the green-skinned Berserker. It's going to be Heavenly Grace all the way, and of course, with its changes to Omni Knight over time, if you haven't looked closely at Omni Knight's kit in the last few patches, I mean, really in the last year, no longer will you be providing a lengthy BKB like Repel, but instead you can provide a really potent amount of status resist and a chunky and recently buffed amount of flat bonus strength, which of course is a strength ranged carry, some of the highest attack speed out of any strength hero, melee or ranged. Huskar is expertly positioned to exploit. So that'll be a really interesting combo, one I haven't seen in, a dog's age, but looking forward to see whether this Omni Knight can be the enabler that this Oracle, ended up being banned to prevent. It's a lot harder, it must be said. Like, the Oracle naturally plays out of a support position, has tons of synergy with the Huskar. Omni Knight obviously has that synergy as well, but very hard to play as a traditional support, often sort of given core farm priority to then buy more supporting items to fulfill a more supporting role. So I don't know whether we'll be, which of those two options we'll be seeing today, but, glad that the Refugees are going to shoot for something different here in Game 2. Meanwhile, the Chads, they've gone for Grimstroke and Viper. So that's something different. But the Viper, a really nice pickup against the Huskar. Huskar is able to bring a ton of force to a particular point on a very short cooldown, starting very early in the game. It's very hard not to die to a Huskar who commits on you. Very often you're just trading with him, if that. But Viper, has really powerful control that can be hard for Huskar to shake. Not relying on a short-term stun or an inconsistent slow. It's a very powerful BKB piercing slow from the Viper Strike that can control the Huskar in fights, even through a BKB. And then, of course, the other part of the kit, Viper applies Break, which removes Huskar's very potent Berserker Blood ability that sort of makes the hero. Is sort of Huskar is on the handful, the short list of heroes who's most vulnerable to the break mechanic in Dota, along with Spectre and Bristleback and the like. So to grab Viper against the Huskar as a solid laning pick and a very, very good answer in later fights, that's the kind of drafting that made Game 1 easy for the Chads. I would say that they outdrafted the QUT lineup. So we'll see whether Elite can avoid having the same misfortune befall him in Game 2. So we see some bans come out. The QUT boys, they're banning offlaners this time around, especially the sort of self-sufficient, high damage over time sort. They remove Necrophos, Timbersaw, Death Prophet. They don't want any of these team fight frontliners coming in, especially heroes like Timbersaw, whose pure damage can obliterate Huskar and any other strength-based hero, or Necrophos, who has that Reaper's Scythe. These are tools that are disproportionately powerful for killing Huskar on heroes that naturally, will lead a team to fight the Huskar and force the Huskar to arrive against the whole of the team. The Huskar wants the heroes to be spread out, wants to be jumping them individually, or at least picking off stragglers from the sides and killing them before anyone can really react. So, you need to make sure that the enemy don't have access to these heroes who reward you for grouping up. And that's what the banning phase is for. So having removed those out, they now go back and they pick up Vengeful Spirit as a potential save for the Huskar. You can swap your Huskar out of that Viper Nether Toxin puddle to remove the break effect. It only applies for as long as the Huskar is sort of mired there. Instead, the UQ Chads, they're going to have to go back and, look for some other tool, maybe some more control for the Huskar to keep him in the puddle, maybe some different source of break. They've already removed the Disruptor, the Wraith King, and the Night Stalker, and now they go for the Earthshaker, so it is actually a form of additional disable. It's not an additional form of break off the bat, although it could build Shadowblade into Silver Edge. It is a ton of burst damage and disable, though, really capable of controlling any hero, including Huskar, once that Blink Dagger comes online. Nowadays, of course, Earthshaker also has access to the Aghanim Shard as another method of keeping control. And now as we take our time, so too do QUT. Interested, they're looking for maybe a safe laner. This has to still be a mid Huskar. I just can't imagine a Huskar going anywhere except mid. Which means the Omni Knight will need a different laning partner. Either a support to enable the Omni Knight to farm some quick items. Maybe like a Halberd, Maybe the Omni Knight could go for a carry build of his own. Icefrog has been buffing that through the use of the Aghanim Shard. It's sort of a self-healing, low cooldown command crit, sort of like Earthshaker's Enchant Totem, without the setup initial stun. But as mentioned, we'll have to wait and see. It's really hard to divine what draft they could be going for here, other than that it is probably sort of an early mid-game focused draft, just because of how Huskar works. And they go for Legion Commander. Really, really nice pickup. So I mentioned Omni Knight would not be giving Huskar out any sort of BKB buffs because of, obviously, the Repel for a while now has not done that. But Legion Commander, for those who read the patch notes, kind of got a Repel. Her Aghanim Shard makes her W press the attack, not only remove debuffs and heal and increase attack speed for a few seconds, it also provides a second and a half of BKB now. And the cooldown and uptime work out to be pretty generous. You can sort of be BKB'd about a third of the time, or a quarter of the time, with a short downtime on the skill overall. It's very, very powerful. Multiple teams I've already seen picking it up alongside Slark or other, dominant carries like that. And Huskar does weirdly fall into that mold. Meanwhile, the Ultra Chads, they realize they have to try and counter a Legion Commander, or at least stop her from farming up her own items. If you want to play her as a big support, fair enough. You've already got Elsie and Omni Knight, which is tricky to say the least. And so the Ultra Chads, they just go back, they grab an Ursa. They know they're allowed to this time. Last time it got banned. This time it will punish any sort of passive laning, out of QUT, and essentially force it to be non-existent laning. If you lane passively against these heroes, they will just fully zone you all the way back to your own Utes. So now the Chads, they ban out the Troll. It's interesting that they banned out the Night Stalker. I'm still not really seeing a hero where the Night Stalker would be of a tremendous threat to them, but maybe their last pick is like a Storm Spirit, and this will turn out not to have been a Mid-Viper after all, or something of those sorts. It's also possible they just did not want the Night Stalker getting on their Earthshaker. Now they ban out a Troll, as I said, and that's, just a completely different kind of thing, but I suppose they're worried about the potential that he might outcarry the Ursa if they just put the Huskar mid and allow another hero to take the farm priority. Which is sort of like what they tried to do game 1, but Elite just decided to try and put the game on his shoulders, and it didn't work out. So now, playing from a game down, will he try and double down and solo carry the game again from a Huskar this time, or will there be a more balanced draft with a secondary core? The Chads have taken all of their available extra time to think about this one, just really making sure they're not rushing into any hasty ban, and they remove a Drow. Hard to call that a bad ban when you're up against a Vengeful Spirit, not to mention an LC and, even Huskar. So taking that out of the equation, really trying to limit the potential for a very early timing-focused, pushing draft. And now the final ban of the Radiant. They, on the other hand, are pretty firm that they're looking to ban out. I guess they could be banning a support or an offlaner. Maybe a mid. They ban an offlaner. They remove the Underlord. They do have multiple melee heroes and a very short-ranged Vengeful Spirit. So that Underlord ban was very thoughtful, very insightful. Maybe even something that, the Chads could have considered picking up earlier in the draft. Because, of course, those first two opening picks, Omni Knight and Huskar, are vulnerable. But, now they'll just have to sort of stew with that knowledge that they could have gotten a Pit of Malice in a game where it was very effective. Instead, they have the rest of their heroes, which, you don't want to remove the benefit of picking the Underlord to pick the Underlord, but it does feel like maybe the balance could have been redressed. We'll see how this ends up sorting out as we go for a last pick, Centaur Warrior. Okay, Centaur Warrunner, rather. Very interesting draft from the Chads. Not a lot of traditional carrying at all, but every hero on the map can kind of farm. So I guess they're all going to get kind of farmed out of the lanes and then run around and try and get kills. I can't argue with that strategy. But the Razor maybe can. We saw this in game 1. Granted, Legend Slayer looked a little bit uncomfortable on the Razor, I will say. It seemed like, just trying to play a hero, for the first time in a captain's mode game against an incredibly competent team, you are going to get exploited a little bit, and that's what happened. But, they're willing to let that occur if it means they get to play with this hero, because the matchups keep being so good. Anyway, as we finally get in, we'll quickly jump ahead, because it looks like the draft is effectively over. And yes, here we are in game 2 of the UQ Big Chads against the Ultra Chads, I should say. They've upgraded from Big Chads. Now they are Ultra, and they are up against the QUT Refugees, fighting back from a game down. Small replay bug? I'm not sure. Okay. Must have been some sort of weirdness with the animations. Now we've seen them all out on the map. So we've got Elite here on this Huskar once again, trying to put his best foot forward and lead from the front, from the mid lane. We've got Legend. This time Legend Slayer is on the Legion Commander. We're going to the safe lane again, it looks like. Yeah, the last time we saw Ethan in the safe lane, but was very clearly playing the off lane role. It was just an attempt to avoid a very difficult enemy offlane. So it's no surprise to see him going to the top lane. It is a little bit surprising to see him on the Razor, But, I mean, you gotta put him somewhere. So 3 die here is actually at bottom, waiting for Legend Slayer to harass him as he arrives in the lane as this LC. But as is typical of a hero with such great base stats, just kind of beats them back. It's very nice. So, I'm just watching this mid lane matchup because it's so volatile at level 1. Both these heroes have very, very powerful orbs going on. You see how much damage Elite takes there from Uguay, and that looks dangerous, but just you wait. Huskar is very close to level 2, and once he obtains that level 2, things could go bad quickly. Speaking of going bad quickly, Legend Slayer also has to watch out for getting Fisher blocked like this. The heal from Tau on the Omni Knight is going to keep him alive and trading with Dunker Dunker. Last game, Dunker Dunker had very easily the run of this lane along with the infamous Amos, but, you know, again, hope springs anew and every game is a new day. So we'll see if they can do differently this time around, do better, and snowball that advantage into a win, just like we saw the Ultra Chads do in Game 1. So speaking of advantage, we have Uguay here, getting the best of the early fighting against the Huskar, essentially zoning off the creeps as a result, as Elite slowly regenerates. More attempted fishes at bottom. Meanwhile, take a look at Gachi's on the Ursa this time. Last game, he completely carried. This game, there might be a little bit less weight on his shoulders, but still sort of the main damage dealer of the team. That just seems to be how they like to use him, so we'll see how that works out. It looks like some light skirmishing across the map. As you can see, not a lot going on. Actually, wait, in the mid lane, Elite is fighting to the death with Uguay. That's what we expect to see happen. Elite, he popped a Fairy Fire, it looks like, and it still wasn't enough. Of course, it is a Huskar. You never get away clean, and Elite does burn to death at Uguay's hands. But, Uguay got more money for the kill. Uguay got more XP for the kill. Uguay gets more credit for the kill. That's a good exchange, and for a Huskar, this is a relatively quiet start. As we see Gachi getting chased back up under his tower. The Ursa pursued by the Razor. Last game they went to great lengths to hide their vulnerable heroes from the Razor. This time they're kind of just letting him have it. But, I mean, letting him have it doesn't mean keeping his support alive. Now, granted, they are going to let him have what looks like both kills here as Pondos attempts to flee. Oh my god, Pondos. Yeah, okay, this looks bad. Wow, Huskar lobs one spear. Cool guys don't look at burning DOTs. Just lets that support die. Pondos is in the dirt, taking a nap. Will be for some time. And so for the first time I can really remember seeing in this series, the Radiant are ahead. The QUT Refugees are taking it up to the Ultra Chads early on. As we watch Gachi just farming under tower. You know, excitement aside, as long as the Sursa is safely farming, things are a little bit concerning. A reasonable Battle Fury timing for Gachi would be trouble, I think. You don't want that coming online as you're trying to push high ground with your Huskar lineup. But we'll see how that goes. Now the lanes are starting to break down a little bit more. We see Dunker Dunker just picking up some slow XP bottom lane, playing a little bit careful, a little bit cagey, just slightly respecting what the Radiant have going on. We can see infamous Amos securing runes for himself through his bottle, and then potentially sharing the charges around to his mid laner. That's some big brain support work right there, if I do say so myself. And then up top, we've got Daedalus. So we've got Pondos here on the Grimstroke, protecting the Ursa. We'll be potentially building a Daedalus. No, okay, still building Battle Fury Blink. No other items queued up. Don't want to spoil from later in the replay. But we've got Pondos cruising in. Actually, doesn't have the damage to kill this Vengeful, just has to watch her teleport out. That's a bit frustrating. Meanwhile, people who do oh, actually, I was about to say, okay, they both have the damage. I was about to say Elite doesn't have the damage to kill Infamous Amos. They have the damage to kill each other, but that is an Earthshaker support for a core Huskar. So these rotations are making the difference in the mid lane. The Huskar is going down, and now the Viper is surviving. Things are looking rough. They go in on the Razor again here. The use of Gachi's Q is so powerful. It's setting up Ethan for a big play. But actually, Uguay just circles in. And Ethan dies again. Familiar story to the first game. It's looking all alright until the enemy rotation arrives. Just Viper creeping in from the back of the monitor there. Laying down the break. Making sure there's an easy kill. A big couple of minutes for Uguay. Has level 6 now, has treads now. We'll see whether this becomes yet more kills. There is an Earthshaker hanging around. Infamous Amos. I don't know if he was actually last game's MVP or not, but he got his hero banned in game 2, so that's got to be worth something. They're giving him some space. And Gachi's just farming away on the Ursa. Again, just a really passive game right now. We can see Elite working towards an armlet. And likewise, everyone else is building towards their first major item. Actually, there's a fight up at top. Passive no more. Ethan is trapped in the trees. 3 Dire Heroes have collapsed on him. How didn't they see this one coming? There's an Omni-Knight and a Venge within sort of spitting distance of the lane. But neither of them were close enough to help with that. So, yeah. Hope you're doing something else good with your time. Tau and Vengeful. Oh, Infamous Amos is in such a tricky spot right now. I don't know if you've seen or not. He clearly suspects he's seen. He's going to teleport out, or at least set up a kill along with Dunker. Oh, Legend Slayer uses the press the attack on himself, so that's going to be on cooldown. There you go. And the Fisher just misses a little bit to the side. Traps the Legion wrong side to the powerful Centaur Wall Runner, and therefore has to give up the kill. It's a little bit unfortunate, but good teams move on from that sort of thing very quickly. You can't afford to dwell in competitive Dota. And Uguay has taken the mid tower, so first blood in that war of chess. But yeah, then pursues Huskar all the way to the ends of the earth, under the tier 2s. Oh, there's an American. Oh, the Centaur, he goes down. He dived too deeply, reached too greedily for a kill that wasn't his. He pays the price. But Uguay with an Arcane Rune seems to be reaching much less greedily, or is he? Runs into the path of not just the Huskar, but also the Venge, looking for a swap, but there just isn't one available that's going to work out. The Huskar just stands his ground and dies to the combined damage over time of the Viper. They exchange their lives again. It's sort of what these two heroes are both mutually about, so not surprised to see it happening, but it's still pretty funny. So both teams looking to set up pressure on opposite towers here, kind of just conceding that that tier 1 bottom is going down. You can see that Tau and Ethan have moved up top, and that Legend Slayer and the Vengeful Spirit are on their way as well. But the problem is that this tower is going to be completely destroyed long before this one is, and you are potentially going to see multiple TPs to defend as well after the tower is successfully taken. Okay, and it looks like the response is just to retreat, which seems pretty smart. As Uguay shows up to just police the Radiant back under their tier 1. We resume the pattern of the Chads, farming just a bit more of the map, and then just a bit more of the map, and then just a bit more, until after barely agreeing to give them the first inch and keeping as close an eye as you can on them, the more they will learn, the more they will take of that mile in the end. And even if the game is passive right now, the onus is on the losing team to change that, and that is, you know, statistically, it's the Radiant. So I'm waiting for them to do something, but their heroes are just not very well equipped for doing things, so to speak. We need a bit more disable maybe to be bought, a little bit more movement speed or something. We just need all 5 heroes to fight, one or the other. Is Uwe coming to kill this Razor? Okay, I thought he might have just been coming to nuke this lane down, but actually, Gachi is here as well, so that looks like it was more of a concerted gank attempt of some kind, or at least of being in the area to set up for one. Team atop, meanwhile. Gachi goes in on Ethan, but the slow is pretty strong and Razor's pretty quick. Is this going to bait Gachi out? No! I mean, Ethan, it would have had to run a long way to get all the way back through the tower and around through the neutrals, but couldn't even really get into the newts to make it exciting. Just had to go down. So this is already looking like a similar phase of Game 1, or even a later phase of Game 1. This is more advanced, this problem, where the Dire are stuck on their side of the map. Any attempt to leave, the perimeter tightens a little bit. Noose gets a little smaller. Avenues to victory decrease. So we just see the Vengeful Spirit just constantly checking the presence of the Abaddon, the presence of the Centaur. Just seeing who's up there from time to time. As we watch down the bottom, we see, I mean, everyone is just farming up right now. Actually, no, sorry, at top lane, something is just up. We've seen the Stampede in, it looks like, from Duncan. No, now we see it. And the double edge goes off. It doesn't quite kill. And Dunker's already run past. He's already committed to it. So he just bails out without taking that hero kill. The Vengeful Spirit, I mean, she did get to slip away. There was a nice little bit of handiwork with the magic stick, but unfortunate that there's so few heroes here. There's no ability to hunker down even for a second to finish that kill. If the burst didn't happen, they weren't getting it, which makes me feel like it's a distraction, but for what? We're picking up a haste. Also getting some farm. It does feel like most of those would happen anyway. We'll see whether they end up feeling punished for it. Just as this Razor is being punished for defending the tier 1. That's not how you do it, buddy. Get out of here. And Vengeful Spirit has wandered up into the midst of the Dire team and died as well. Just wanted to express solidarity with a lane partner, I guess. Now I've got Legend Slayer still struggling to get more than 10 dual damage. Can't really put together the aggressive positions that he needs to in the fights. Can't isolate people, often initiating, which isn't good. And during that time, the Roshan has been taken. But it's immediately stolen by Elite. Oh, sorry, it's taken by Elite and then found by the Dire, sorry. So, unfortunate for Elite there. But, you know, his team at least did not all crowd around and try and save him. And there's a lot of value to taking the Aegis off the map before your opponent can take it, right? Like, if you're trying to push the high ground with this sort of lineup in the next 10 minutes, you're going to really want an Aegis, if possible, to help you do it. And, you know, one way to make sure the enemy can't have that Aegis is just kill the Roshan yourself. Maybe you can't take a team fight against them, but you can probably sneak into the pit where no one's looking and just make sure you grab a quick few points of damage to kill it off. Because now we see Uguay fighting for his life in the middle lane, but he has a pocket up his, an ace up his sleeve. It's the Stampede from the Centaur. Dunker does Stampede in, lets the Razor know he's there, but it's just a love tap, and the Razor will live. And now, I mean, this is similar to what was before. We see the raiding heroes, they're fanning out, but not to really any avail. They're slowly falling behind on gold, and I just don't know if they have a game plan to the degree that the Chads do. It feels like the Chads have considered, like, maybe not every facet of this game, but a lot of different facets, as this appears to be as Battle Fury coming out. And, you know, just sitting around and waiting for a team to make a mistake, it works in a lot of matches, but it won't work here, I would think. Every hero is in a huge bubble of personal space. Now, and only now, do the Dire come down to support Gachi in the bottom lane. He still does not have that Bay Fury, by the way. That was actually only the third part, so, you know. Gachi just taps that Great Wave, shoves it in. It's going to crash on the tier 2. Their Radiant heroes are assembled here to defend it, but they're assembled on the high ground, which is wise. They don't want to give away their numbers or positioning if they don't have to. Nor do you really want to feel forced to like commit sort of as soon as the conditions are there. Ideally, you want to have a chance to like assess any possible bluff or something like that. But the Dire, they have none of these concerns, right? The Radiant here are trying to do a master's degree on how to take a team fight with their lineup, whereas the Dire are sort of just roaming around farming, and then occasionally when they're all together trying to Inkswell and having a bit of blink and Inkswell kill. Come on, Pondos. You know you want the Inkswell shard. It's really good. You're using Inkswell so well. Yeah, this one's just a little casual duel. And again, we enter a period of farming. We've had the last hits up, but let's check out the net worth. I'm sure the Dire, yeah, significantly favored on both the Viper and on the Ursa. It's rough stuff right now for the QUT refugees. They're trying to hold on defensively, but they are behind in doing so. At the same time, they don't feel like they can readily give up the life. They've got to give something, though. They're going to give up this VS then, maybe. No, she gets saved by the False Promise, but that means the False Promise is down. They realize and they turn. They're trying to kill the Oracle. They bring him down. The Promise is out on the Huskar now. The Huskar hasn't healed enough in that time. He's going to be brought down as well. It is a big messy fight overall. Dunker, his life does get spent in trade at the end there, but it's not quite enough. The lead extends to 6,000 gold, creeping higher now up towards 7k, and you have to worry for the fortunes of the refugees if they just can't quite put together a draft with a teamfight plan in mind. Like I'm not sure why they're picking these heroes that lack sort of obvious disables. They've got the VS, I suppose, same as last time, just sort of like one shortish range stun, and this time they don't even have the Potom. They're wholly reliant on Huskar just jumping people to initiate and then surviving, which I think might be a tall order still. Actually, there's something. Oh, Infamous Amos. He's trying to earn himself another respect ban. This time for the Earthshaker. He's gunning for that VS. She's gonna get... No, there's no 4-star. She doesn't even have one, actually. I thought she was more equipped than she has, but actually, the big, powerful Omnidite ultimate is enough to get us a bit of a trade going on. They do still lose the VS in the end because she chased after Pondols and caught a nuke to the face. But okay, there's a spark. There's a sign of life. A kill back on the board for the refugees. Meanwhile, on the other side of the map, Dunker is getting close to a BKB, has potentially finished a Vanguard if he wants it as well. And then the Huskar... Where is this Huskar? There we are. Elite, of course, has finished his armlet and is building towards his BKB, but you know he's just hitting creeps this entire time. I'm not sure what his timing is that he's going to want to come along, but yeah, he's going to need something. As we watch Gachi, his arm with the Battle Fury now. 18 minutes, he becomes suddenly the most efficient farmer on the map. Huskar and Legion have been sort of keeping within spitting distance until now, but with how farmed the Dire already are, and especially how farmed Gachi already is, I don't know whether they can stay within that spitting distance, that striking distance for much longer. This might just end up being one of those games that just blows out massively if you fail to have like one combo card kill on the large... Oh, sorry. One quick kill on the Ursa at the beginning of a team fight. They're going to go for a quick kill onto this Omni Knight instead, which is the key to that, of course. If you bring down his protection, that is what makes the Ursa killable. And they're going to not wait at all. They go immediately onto the Ursa at top lane. The Legion Commander and the Huskar together. There's the Huskar's Q, the secret weapon. But Gachi purges it off with the ultimate. So the Elite has to fall back, and Uguay arrives at the fight. It's a full-blown fight now. Even Huskar's magic resist can't save him, and they crush him. Infamous Amos. He was the MVP in game 1. They banned out his Pangolier, and they said, "Geez, Amos, please don't do it to us again." And he does it again with the Earthshaker this time. Massive Echo Slam. You could see the Huskar, he was already healing up there, on the verge of rejoining that fight and potentially bringing down Gachi. But instead, even though they got the first kill on the Omni Knight, they did not put the rest together. Maybe they should have waited a little bit longer. Maybe if they had their full team there at the beginning of that when they initiated, it would have gone better. But nevertheless, it works out. they are able to win the fight despite Gachi dropping very low. Here he kills off the VS, and now, I don't know, if you miss that chance to kill your Ursa when half the team are elsewhere, I don't know where you can get it done in the fights. Like, he's only going to get more farmed. He got a lot more profitable gold from that team fight. Now he's on 11k. Viper's on 10. Huskar on 7k. We've got Infamous Amos now. I mean, I was talking about Big Storm. He owned... Oh my god! I looked away from Gachi for 1 second. He kills Legend Slayer again. This is such a disaster. Uguay has a DD rune. Could anything else go right for the Dire? They're 12,000 gold ahead. Oh no. Ethan 8877. He's been doing relatively well this series so far, but now he's just more food. This Razor hero has not worked out for the refugees. They'll be seeking any sort of safe port right now, but every member of the Dire team is suddenly on fire. So many kills have broken out in this game in the last minute or two. You know, I don't know if it's just the Earthshaker making that quick rotation, or whether Gachi's kind of hit this critical mass as well, where he's like finished farming in a sense. He hasn't really, but having bought an item after the Battle Fury and then bought a Blink, where we're seeing him decide that he's strong enough to just hit these heroes, gun them down, and there's not like many answers on the opposite side. You know, Legend Slayer, all he can really do is try to position outside the fight and get some sort of disabling duel off, but there's no halberd or right now to make that duel safe, or even like a BK, not a BKB, a blade mail to try and use it to be lethal. Maybe he can like kamikaze duel Gachi with the blade mail up, but he doesn't even have it yet. And then, you know, the Omni Knight, as we saw, his ultimate's been the one thing that's let them take successful fights. When he dies at the bottom lane, they immediately jumped to try and fight before the Dire could reunite and consolidate against them. But it didn't pay off. And then as soon as that team fight was joined without the Omni Knight, you saw how fast it fell apart. So there really has to be real safe positioning from Tao, but actually he's out of this fight and may not reach it in time, depending on how fast the Dire burst is. Actually, okay, he is arriving at the fight now, but it's all just a setup for Amos. He was watching that choke point like a hawk. They have these Dire wards on the high ground that set up that Echo, but Elite did not die. Huskar, very magic resistant, has the BKB as well, so extra magic resistant right now. He pushes back Gachi with the knockback, but Gachi in his turn tanks through it with the ultimate, the Ursa in rage. It's just too much right now. In another match, maybe you could kite him and draw it out, but they don't have enough options. All they can do is like lean on this Huskar Q, and that by itself is not, you know, it just lets Gachi fire off the ultimate. Just like in the last game with the Slark, he's not pressured by enough different things to make his game difficult. He just has to make sure he waits, press the button when Huskar presses his button, go in after Amos has hit the Echo Slam, like really color by numbers stuff, and for a player of Gachi's caliber, that is not difficult to color in. So now the Dire, I mean, I just said all of that. They're falling back. They haven't taken the tier 3 yet. Glyph was used. But again, the economic damage just mounted for the whole game long. It's now a 17,000 lead. And wow, there we go. Roshan spawning right on time. Good job, boys. They're going to net another Aegis for this Ursa very soon. I don't know, maybe they'll put it on Centaur or on Viper. Oh, but they take advantage of Amos being alone in the top lane. They're going for the duel on him. And in fact, they're also trying to kill this Grimstroke. They do get the duel on Amos. I don't know if that was actually worth duel damage. And the other aggression might not work out so well. There's been a great swap by the Vengeful, but that just notifies Grimstroke that they are in range of each other. The level 1 swap, its huge weakness is its very not huge range. And so they are already still next to each other after that swap for the Soulbind, which ends up just getting 2 kills for the Dire instead of 1. Elite, he tries to turn, does the Huskar thing, but he only kills the Aegis. Will this Burning Spears tick get Dunker? No. He has the cheese, and he also has a Glimmer Cape protecting him. So now things are looking rough in the base. And with a couple more heroes dying there on the way out. Uguay, I say on the way out, Uguay's just vibing here. He hasn't left at all. He outranges the tier 3 tower, so he just gets to very slowly siege it down. Dunker, of course, begging QUT to go on him, and this is such a Chad move. This is such a Chad team. They're just playing really strong Dota. It's a team of star players. All of them really know what they're doing, some of the best in their position in the region, and united, they look like an unstoppable force right now. You know, that Uruguay hasn't had such a great game necessarily either game. You know, Dunker got shut down for a little bit, but Gachi's just farmed, and then eventually takes over the map. It's half drafting to set up this kind of inevitability, and then half gameplay to reach it. And you have to respect that, even if you try to stop it from happening. Now we see the Blink duel, but that's Blink way ahead of your team. Dies instantly. Legend Slayer, I'm sorry, dude. That's not going to work out. And GG is called immediately as Amos crushes another fight again. Like the 4th fight in a row. Multi-hero Echo Slam. Not even in the fight. There was barely a choke point that time. They certainly weren't gathering up on a target. Amos just knows. Teleports to the high ground with the Blink Dagger. Crushes it with the Echo Slam. The GG call is forthcoming immediately. That is how you establish dominance. Well done to the Chads. There's a massive 2-0 win in this series. We look at the graph. You know, you can see it only slowly over time displays the net worth descending. You know, it's not that they leap out ahead. It's just that they got ahead early on. You can see they have the top 2 cores even by about 5 minutes. And then that gap never changes. They get further ahead. So that's the kind of thing that, you know, the very tight, disciplined play can get you. It doesn't look like much at any particular point during the game, but when you look back on it in hindsight, it's hard to imagine a more dominant win. And that is 2 back-to-back nearly identical wins of that sort for the UQ Ultra Chads. So I'm very excited now to watch them live later in the season. Of course, that game was from last week. That was week 4's highlight match here in the Australian Esports University League. Now, we are not done for the night. We have another best of 2 series right after this. We're going to go to a break to get those replays set up. We'll be back after this, thanks to Chatime, with the next series, the UniMelb / LoonyMelb team versus the USYD Paid Actors. So 2 pretty clowny team names ready to play some very competitive, I'm sure, and disciplined Dota. Right back after this. we are back. Hello, everybody, and thank you for watching that series. That was the UQ Big Chads, Ultra Chads, and Chad like they were in their crushing 2-0 victory over the QUT Refugees Esports team. Of course, that's going to stand them in good stead going forward, and we have another match here featuring some more of our likely late season contenders in LoonyMelb and the USYD Paid Actors. So let's jump across. We'll have that replay fired up for you very soon indeed. Of course, again, you are joining us for the highlight stream, casting from replay some of the best matches of the last couple of weeks. Make sure you tune in next time for more live matches from the Chatime sponsored University League here at Australian Esports. Not just Chatime sponsored, I should say. All our sponsors, of course, are down the bottom of the screen, and we should take some time to talk about some more of them. Indomie, we got cut off before, but their noodles are not just, ramen. This is a special brand to many people. Everyone has got their own favourites, standby that's always in the cupboard. These ones are made from some of the most carefully selected ingredients, best quality flour and fresh spices, and the taste of Indonesia is the special flavouring that really sets Indomie apart. These are all the things that have made them a fan for many different university students. I know a lot of LoonyMelb students in particular really like those noodles. They are, hoping that they'll be giving them drafting power in this game, because the last set was really decided in the drafting phase. I think we saw Elite, of course, drafting for Refugee Esports has to do a lot in the game, kind of constrained in what cores you can pick, and the star power on the side of the Ultra Chads team did allow them to outmaneuver their opponents a little bit in the drafting phase. Just having additional flexibility is good. We'll see whether or not LoonyMelb can pull off something similar. They've got Kage S, Yarak, Vorkwar, Bogged, Finance, and Duckfling, a really powerful squad. It says here they're up against Team Acrimian. Of course, that's the in Dota team name. We have it on good authority that is in fact the USYD Paid Actors. It actually kind of makes sense that the Paid Actors would be acting up as a different team every week. Maybe they adopt new characters. Maybe they play a completely different style of Dota. Who could know? But LoonyMelb, they banned the Huskar. They saw what happened. Even though, these matches were not played sequentially. That last previous match was the highlight from Week 4. This is the Week 5 highlight. The Huskar pick has only intensified in its banning percentage in public matches and pro matches since that time. Not surprised to see it removed immediately at the start of this match. Tiny is a little bit more of a surprise, but of course, perennially dangerous hero. Very powerful support, especially in the right hands. Team Acrimian, for their part, they removed PL, another real patch hero. The buff to his Aghanim Shard is absolutely disgusting. Has resulted in some really crushing defeats for a lot of players. Lots of public complaining on the Reddit about the power level of that hero. But once it's banned, any hero is defeatable. And Acrimian also banning out the Beastmaster. Beastmaster, a really interesting hero. Grimstroke, also an interesting hero. I can't say he's quite a boring hero. I can't even quite bring myself to joke about it. I love Grimstroke, but we did just talk about him for a whole series. So let's talk about Beastmaster again for a second, because there was a really critical, overdue, important balance change in this Dawnbreaker patch that we just saw. And it was the complete removal of the item Necrobook. One line, Necrobook has been removed from the game. And that's an end of an era type thing, right? Like, short of deleting a hero from Dota 2, like if suddenly Dazzle just wasn't in the game or whatever, Shadow Fiend's just gone next patch, which will never happen, by the way. Like, Dota 2's heroes carry too much weight. IceFrog would rather completely remake them than delete them whole. The item Necrobook just being gone really shakes the foundations for a lot of old-timers and their Dota experiences. I mean, I haven't been with Dota since the very, very start, but I remember playing in net cafes in the mid-2000s. Yes, I'm dating myself. I was a young high schooler. I was in there, cracking on, getting waxed by people with sick Necrobook micro. And it's from the very early days of Dota when things were much more, things with summoning abilities were more common. A lot of heroes had large summoned armies. It was more of an RTS type game. The Necronomicon has kind of carried that style of gameplay faithfully onwards from patch to patch. But unfortunately, especially in the era of Dota 2 in the past decade, it really has felt like an impossible item to balance. It's either the worst item in the patch and it's never purchased and it drags down heroes like Lycan and Beastmaster and Nature's Prophet along with it, or it's godly, the best item in the game, everyone buys it on every hero. You know, there was that patch where it was more efficient as a farming item than Midas on literally everyone. And the fact that the Necro Book summons, it's sort of one of those items that, depending on when it's purchased and who it's purchased by, can just defeat most heroes very easily for a period of time. It really is quite miserable to play against in its power spikes. And as a support, I have a particular loathing for its True Sight ability, where it's just sort of like a better gem that can't be dropped and can safely de-ward all vision from the map starting very early in the game. So Beastmaster now, with that item being deleted, is kind of like the flagship Necronomicon buyer. The hero has to kind of be worked out all over again. There's been buffs to its Aghanim Scepter, which is like makes Beastmaster more of like a spell spamming ranged nuker. But I haven't seen those builds really be that tremendously powerful. It's strong, but not in a way that wins games, it seems like. There's a new buff to the Helm of the Dominator, make its upgraded form more and more powerful, so you have your own little zoo that way. Maybe that's the path that Beastmaster takes from now on. But whatever the case, Acrimian, that's the USYD Paid Actors, have seen fit to ban it out. So enough talking about that, because I'm sure everyone's salivating for me to talk about what they actually picked after the banning phase, which was Dazzle and Pudge. That's right, Pudge has been picked up, the most popular hero in Dota 2 bar none. I don't believe he's still... I think Sniper at some point overtook and then stayed in the lead as the most picked hero of all time. But Pudge has to be the most iconic and popular and beloved Dota 2 hero. The sense of throwing out a hook, getting that, fresh meat, is hard to match, really. He's such a funny, exciting hero to play. And it both allows people to flex their skills, and it allows people to kind of cover up for a lack of skill in some cases, at least at lower levels. I think that's part of why the hero is so popular throughout all ranks of Dota 2. People who are very good at Pudge, love to bring the special relevance that only that hero can bring. And people who don't know as much about the game still love Pudge because it gives you like one very clear role, and you can always tell exactly how much impact you're having on the game. There's other heroes where you'll play them, and after the game ends, especially if you lost, you have no idea whether you played well or not. It's really hard to say because, your impact is too dependent on your team, or it's kind of negated by another hero, and you just don't really get the chance to get a sense for how your own quality of play was that game. Pudge, though, very straightforward. If you hit a hook on someone, you probably killed them, and if you kill them, then you know that kill was 100% your doing, that's your contribution, you killed that guy. And over the course of the game, the number of hooks you hit is going to determine how much your team loves you and how much you love yourself. And now, granted, Pudge has a little bit of functionality to him these days. He can eat his allies defensively. He has a very short cooldown Dismember ultimate that can be upscaled in various ways if you play him as a core or he happens to get quite rich. He can easily get rich by buying Magic Resist and being able to rot down waves of creeps, depending on how much space the rest of the team leaves. But really, it never hasn't and never will not be about just throwing hooks at people, catching as many of them as you can, and eating them. Maybe if you're feeling okay about it, you'll see someone at the end of their shallow grave timer surrounded by enemies, and you'll feel magnanimous, and you'll spare that man's life with a friendly hook. But I'm interested to see who on the paid actors is going to pick up the Pudgy boy. Their teammates are going to be playing something a little bit more conventional. Juggernaut and Dazzle, solid combo. Dazzle, it must be said, got a massive upgrade this patch. The shard buff that he got, or just the shard that he got, it's a completely different ability, is just maybe the strongest one. It turns Poison Touch into an AoE Hex. The Hex is all the targets it hits. Not for 100% uptime, not at all, but enough. And then on the opposite side, on LoonyMelb, they picked up the Axe, another hero we saw a lot of last series and don't need to necessarily talk a lot more about. They banned out Slark, Ursa, and Monkey, this unholy trinity of safe laning carries that can easily zone out offlaners. Meanwhile, USYD, also sick of those heroes, banned out Alchemist and Troll. And LoonyMelb, they've decided that they don't want to be left out of the hooking action. They think that playing Pudge sounds like so much fun from my description that they would also like to play Pudge. So they've picked up a Rubik to allow themselves to do that, to piggyback off the Pudge, and all the other heroes, of course, and contribute with a variety of stolen spells to the fights. Now, Rubik, it's not so much that Rubik is a great choice against Pudge because you can steal Meat Hook. Stealing Meat Hook by itself is often not as effectual because, unless Pudge also lets you steal Dismember right after, you don't have that very powerful melee disable that you want/need to follow up with. But, you have your Telekinesis, and oftentimes Hook is going to pull someone quite enough out of position if you're with your team can get the kill. The real reason, though, that Rubik is good against Pudge is that you can safely lane the Rubik against the Pudge. Like, Rubik's primary weakness is quite similar to Pudge's weakness, his early lack of impact, lack of lane presence. Only got the one long cooldown nuke in Fade Bolt, the one non-damaging crowd control spell with quite a short duration, and he needs level 6. So often Rubik drafts need somewhere to hide their Rubik. And in this case, you just hide him in the lane that the Pudge is in because the Pudge is similarly spotty in his laning phase contributions. Or you could probably just put the Rubik besides the Axe in the offlane. If you didn't want to do the Grimstroke Axe combo, which, I understand why you would, it's very good. But if you're pressed on doing that, then, sure. Otherwise, putting Rubik with the Axe means that Axe is going to be tanky enough and have enough lane presence by himself to basically solo the lane, and then Rubik can do what he has to in terms of pulling creeps or chilling near the lane from time to time to build up towards that spell steal ultimate. But I've talked enough about Rubik. It's time for what the USYD paid actors have picked up. It's the Magnus. The Magnetor, a notoriously powerful, win the game by myself mid-hero. I'm not certain what this says about the USYD complement. I can't remember having cast this lineup before, but certainly someone is going to be in with a shot of just destroying this game with a reverse polarity. It's a hero I haven't even seen in a long while, so I'm excited to sort of reflect on what it got in the patch, whether it's good or bad, just view from a height and get some valuable information on these early days of competitive Dawnbreaker patch play. Interesting. LoonyMelb, they ban out the Storm Spirit. Like the Monkey King and stuff, all those bans made sense, and they make more sense now that we've seen a melee carry appear to be backed up by a Magnus. Giving them a Storm Spirit would be very interesting for a team with relatively little crowd control currently, but that's what happened. So they've removed the Storm. If USYD were thinking about the Storm Spirit pick, they're back to the drawing board now. They are taking up some real time to think about this. They banned the Puck. Talked a bit about Puck last series. Very easy hero to ban out in the current meta. He's just so powerful. Thanks largely to the item Witchblade, which got added and then inexplicably not nerfed at all in the Dawnbreaker patch. An insane item that gives Puck a massive AoE nuke with the Waning Rift auto attack talent, and just a way to put out too much burst damage on too many short independent cooldowns. That hero has to be banned out. And likewise as does the Void Spirit, which LoonyMelb have removed as their final pick of the draft. So both teams trying to target each other's mid laners. I wouldn't be surprised if both teams had already picked their mids and it ended up being something like Rubik Magnus mid or Rubik Dazzle mid. We will have to see. For some reason, the Rubik mid is just calling out to me, but of course, that is not the default position. So it's very likely that this becomes the last hero and mid hero for LoonyMelb, and they've picked pretty fast, and it's OD. So that does look like I was right. It looks like being an Outworld Destroyer game in the mid lane, safe lane Spectre to be backed up by the Rubik, or maybe the Grimstroke Axe in the other lane with the other support. I think, going back on what I said before, I would probably put Grim and Spectre together, just because you've picked a Spectre, such a soft laner, and you really need to nurse her to a different start. But we'll see what they do. Ultimately, input here does not count. It's up to the players themselves to execute how they wish. And they wish for a QUT. Alright, so solid grab from the USYD Paid Actors. We'll jump from that from the end of the draft into the game proper, because of course we have the luxury of doing so in a replay series. And we can see, okay, immediately we've jumped into a pause. Oh, actually, this is a... Right, yeah, it's immediately a pause at the start of the game. We'll take the opportunity to run down the squads. We've got Kage S on the Grimstroke, Yarak on the Outworld Destroyer, Vorkor on the Spectre. Go follow him at twitch.tv/Vorkor. Bogged.finance on the Rubik, and Duckflinger on the Axe. Really got my eye on Duckflinger's Axe. It was fearsome the last time I cast LoonyMelb. This whole squad is very stacked. Let's see if they can live up to the high standard set by the Chiefs in Series 1. And on the Dire side of things, we've got Obiajulu on the QUT, Ninja Monkey on the Dazzle, Miley on the Juggernaut, on the Pudge. That's a great name, especially for a Pudge, and Luzd on the Magnus. Really, some real good gamer names out here, folks. Really getting into it. But let's see if we can skip a little bit ahead until this pause. There we go. The pause has ended. If you're just now tuning in, I am the Wandering Bard, and you are watching the Australian Esports University League. It's Season 1 of 2021, and we are watching two of Australia's finest learning institutions play Pudge Rubik Hook Wars. We're about to. Let's get ready. Looks like the Dire are congregating around the bottom runes, as makes sense. This is just the new rune spawning mechanics. Because you get the one rune spawn on your own high ground and one nearby, and then the Radiant have the vice versa setup, there's some temptation to go check your opponent's runes, but realistically it's just going to be 5 heroes taking both of the runes on your own side of the map and calling it a day. I wonder how long this little setup is going to last. But here we go, we're off and away. So, Duckflinger, as we said, taking the Axe to the offlane. He will be accompanied by the Rubik this time. Bogged Finance is there with him, while Vorkor carries the Spectre to the bottom lane, along with KGS on the Grimstroke. Yarak left to fend in the mid, up against Obiajulu on the QUT, who... I would not call myself an expert on mid matchups, but you would have to assume the QUT has the advantage. This is why you pick it here. Just try and, break even or even get slightly ahead in the mid lane over that OD before it starts to get those levels up and the big banish combo comes online, before the Meteor Hammer becomes available. I am kind of assuming a Meteor Hammer build here from the OD. The Blink Meteor Hammer is just so powerful for controlling so many heroes. Other lanes slightly more peaceful. In fact, all lanes fairly peaceful. Wait, no. Okay, there we go. Ninja Monkey's Dazzle dies deep in the woods to Bogged Finance on the Rubik. Clearly just trying to all-in trade with the Rubik and got Fade bolted, I suppose? Or was maybe was being attacked by creeps? Well, that makes relatively little sense. But yeah, as I said, other than that, a pretty peaceful laning phase. All even so far in the mid lane. On bottom lane, we can see KGS having to deal with the pressure this double strength melee lane exerts, but then getting some good pressure of his own back. So, And so things proceed apace. As we keep our eye on the mid lane. I guess the level of this Magnus might even be more important than the level of the QUT, because not only is the Magnus actually, there's a fight happening at top lane. Miley getting spun by the Juggernaut. That's a bit of a turning of tables there. The Juggernaut getting spun. Oh, Bogged Finance! He gives up the Ghost early. He doesn't have the cooldown for another Fade Bolt, and now he's committed himself to death. That is rough. As soon as he walked away in those trees and the heal came out from Ninja Monkey, I'm sure Bog Finance knew he was dead. And so instead just tried to stand and stubbornly hope that he would kill the Juggernaut. Ends up breaking the salve, I guess. But it is not enough. That is a really tight little bait there. And now it's kind of cracked the top half of the map wide open for the Radiant. As we return to somewhat passive farming. Of course, once Magnus continues to get levels up in this Empower, this kind of passive farm game will be heavily favouring him. So I'm wondering, you know, which and how these heroes break the laning phase first. Like, you know, this Juggernaut is unlikely to... Oh, okay, well, Vorkor isn't the one who wants to break the laning phase, but has it broken up from him there then with a nice little double involvement kill from the Pudge and Abba. It's KGS just playing with off to the side of the lane until the Spectre gets back. Ninja Monkey tangling with Bogged Finance here in the river. He's heading back up. Duck Flinger, he's on the case. Okay, now he deploys the call. He waits until they're right in the middle of the creep wave, but he gets no spins. Level 2 counter helix, I don't think it procced at all there. If it did, it was barely noticeable, and now Duck Flinger has to rely on the telekinesis from Bogged Finance to save his life, which he does get. There's fighting at bottom lane as well. No fighting at bottom lane as well. Just heroes getting uncomfortably close to each other. Real personal space issue there. And to check back in, our mid duel is still basically even. 18 and 4 CS on the side of Yarak's Outworld Destroyer. 18 and 6 on the behalf of the QUT. So really close together, these different items, these different heroes and their item builds. As teleports to the top lane to try and make something work, and yeah, lets out the eponymous. As the hook sails wide, misses, goes hit some creeps. And so now we see a pause. We can quickly skip ahead here because it is a replay to try and find the end of this. Oh, this is not the end of this. Oh, there we go, okay. That looks like it was roughly the end of the pause. Everyone's still in the same position, so we're going to leave it unpaused from here. Hopefully no further pauses from these players. It would be sad to know that this match was decided by technical difficulties after all. But, you know, sometimes that's Dota. Still another match to play in this series after this. We see Obiayulu laying the harass into the Outworld in the anticipation of the Outworld hitting level 6. It's a little bit easier to use in the laning situation than the QUP's ultimate is. We'll see if they're both, you know, laning. Oh, as we see, Luz just managed to slip away. Vorkor, I mean, like, he would love to get that kill, but I'm sure he's satisfied just to drive the enemy laner out and get some free farm time as the Spectre. Kageya's kind of just hanging around leeching the XP, but is important in case there's serious aggression directed at Vorkor, which means, you know, probably pretty soon. Never mind. Oh, okay, Odie, I wonder where he went to. He teleported out of a mid lane that's full of farm. Turns out he went top to try and get a double kill here, but it might backfire. The Omni Slash comes out and Miley gets the kill. Yarak teleports up top lane to die. Oh no. That is unfortunate stuff. Okay. Vorkor insists that Magnus is missing. He's just mid. I had vision of him the whole time. And now Lust, has the RP. Vorkor, yeah, Vorkor does manage to respect the power of reverse polarity, skewer into, like, you know, not quite a bomb, but, like, you know, very dangerous terrain that's surrounded by, or surrounding a Pudge. And right now we're still seeing more passive gameplay. Duckflinger is farming towards a Vanguard. Worked out great for the Axe last series, so hard to fault that as a starting item here. Really just gives you all of the physical defense and health that you need to run around and do goofy stuff for the rest of the early and mid game. And that's what you really want to do as Axe, I'm sure. As I say, Yarak taking a really aggressive high ground position. He has the Meteor Hammer, that's why. He waits a little bit, as it passes the Ancient Banished, I guess, and they catch the QUT with it. And they immediately kill that QUT off. Really, really good coordination from the side of the Radiant. Key kill taken, reduces the gold lead, buys some time to push the tower potentially, if Yarak is so inclined. As we watch Vorkor just farm a Storm up here in the bottom lane. 4th on net worth overall, but pretty close. Even compared to last game. Oh, wait. Obi Yulu. Is this Envision? There's no ward. This QUP might be staying just out. No, daytime strikes. The QUP is seen. So that rotation was for nothing. Oh, Yarak tries to get the DD rune off of the Pudge, but Ugin just hooks it back to himself. Oh, it's... sorry, not Ugin. too much magic on the brain lately. But Ugg is now double damaged on Pudge. Ready to throw out some nasty hooks. Of course, that won't double damage of the spells, but the follow-up autos are what really get him, I'm sure. Still, perhaps because of that very notable DD, they are allowing him room right now. Nope. And so, meanwhile, everyone's just farming up their win conditions, and I'm a little bit worried for the Dire that these 3 Radiant heroes are 2nd, 3rd, and 4th on net worth. They do have the top net worth in the game by, 600 gold or so in the jug. But, I'm a little bit worried for him if there are multiple quite tanky enemy cores going around who can itemize against him freely. And, yeah, this looks like being one of those. As Vorkor tangles with Luzd on the bottom lane again. Luz's just been playing very carefully on the Magnus, hasn't died one time yet. Just making sure that he's in there as much as he can. Now Yarak's making another Meteor Hammer play. This time it's on a Ninja Monkey, but this time it misses slightly. The Meteor was just a second too early. They get the kill anyway, but... you gotta be careful with that sort of stuff. Now Axe TP's mid, only to be met by Yarak and KGS, who've come here to maybe, just maybe, claim the tier 1 mid tower. Yarak, okay, wow, I believe that's the first Sanity's Eclipse of the game. I mean, it got the job done. If you really hate Magnus that much, you can drop the hammer on him. 300 stolen mana, I believe that is, from the Astral Imprisonment, made absolutely certain that Magnus was reduced into juice. And, I mean, you could do that every fight, I guess, and then you never have to worry about RP. That seems quite strong. Vorkor certainly doesn't have to worry about a thing. He is taking full advantage of this empty top half of the map, farming up a Storm on the spec.
Dire's top tower is in danger.
Now we see Duckflinger. He's finished that Vanguard that we mentioned he was building. He's picked up Phase Boots as well. Now going back for the Blink Dagger. I love this stuff. I love seeing Axe get some, get just even a couple of small items that cover his weaknesses before we try and, tackle strengths, you know? The Dire are descending on this tier 1 bottom. And it looks like they're going to face no resistance on it. The Radiant are going top instead. So, wise decision. It's never really that smart to try and defend a tower that your enemy are already set up on and you aren't. Even if you feel strong, even if your team have nothing better to do, you know, whatever else, even if you're bored, you shouldn't take fights on your opponent's terms. Granted, they may end up doing so anyway because the bottom tower is already destroyed. And now we have to have... yeah, chomp attackers, basically. Just running unit after unit into the Spire, into this tier 1 here. Yarak drops the hammer on it. They're going to get the kill. I'm not really sure what the Dire have been doing during this time. It feels like they should have done something more significant, like rebuild all the towers. Or rebuild / steal Roshan. I don't know. They just sat in mid for a long while the Radiant were all visibly top, getting that tier 1. So in the end, it ends up being a bit of like a slow motion tower trade, which is funny to think about. But you know, that's Dota 2, I guess. Everything is Dota when it comes right down to it, and you know, the border between good and bad play is sometimes blurred. As we watch around, it's actually the Juggernaut who's currently the most farmed hero. This is another match where everyone is just hitting creeps just as hard as they possibly can. We've got Battle Fury on, you know, several Dire heroes. We've got this Spectre just chipping away with the chip vest, and the Blade Mail just trying to deal enough damage to kill these Ancients, get some levels, get a neutral item maybe that would help her. That would be the most effective way to get some stills, some items going. We're nearly to this Orchid. I think this is going to be the catalyst for some aggression out of the Dire. It's very important for ganking OD so that he doesn't just imprison himself and then imprison himself again, or himself and then you, or whatever the case may be. But it's not quite ready yet. We're going on our multiple heroes as well. Meanwhile, the Magnus isn't stacking, he just has like a bunch of normal items from normal laning. Very interesting. So again, just a lot of non-combat. I don't know who this really favors, because there is a Magnus on the side of the Dire, but on the other hand, there's a Spectre Radiant. Oh, hang on. Okay, this might be the fight. Yarak comes in. Okay, that's a really lackluster Sanity's Eclipse. He misses the Juggernaut thanks to the Omni Slash and immediately realizes he has to retreat. But Duckflinger is not really a retreating kind of guy. He retreats forward into Ninja Monkey, into Obiulu, into Luzd. What a steal, by the way. And Bugged Finance, with the Sonic Wave of his own, I believe, kills off both the QUT, her own ultimate, and the Magnus that was looming large in the background of that fight. So the arrival of reinforcements and some very nice first spell selection and usage really saved the day there. And Bogged Finance, wow. Some very strong Rubik play coming out right now. Maybe have to consider that for the bans next time. But they fall back, obviously. It is only 17 minutes. So no way that they really high ground this early on if previous games on the patch are anything to go by. Getting their tier 2 neutrals up. I mean, surely at this point, this is where you smoke on Luzd, right? You want to get that RP off. Next time that it's up in 50 seconds, just smoke up and go and get a good RP. You know, you found some good Aghanim Interceptor Earthshaker ults later on. Just like follow that logic that we saw out of Amos in Series 1, and just make sure you wait in a team fight until you're called upon, until you're needed. That is when your hero has the most impact. Speaking of, they might be calling him in right now to get on a Yarak here. I'm sure they're getting on a Pudge as well. They spear him forward. Okay, Yarrick banishes off Luz, but without realizing, I guess, that banishment really just means there's no possible meat shield to save him from the Pudge Hook, and doesn't miss. So that is a dead Outworld Destroyer, which is very, very powerful. Really important for this 2 or 3 color spells deck to get that for this this Juggernaut team to get that done. Now he's pushing the bottom lane out with that Battle Fury that he's completed. He's got the Healing Wall coming up as well. And this Manta, I don't know about the Manta this game, to be honest, but it's a necessary pushing tool, perhaps. Like, you can't Manta off Grimstroke Silence, and I wonder whether... I'm assuming Miley knows that. I won't insult the players and say they don't know what's going on. But, like, this is not a purgeable silence. You have the little bug on you from Grimstroke, and I guess you can purge it by making Manta Illusions and having the Manta Illusions hit it off. But normally what you're looking for with Manta is to remove that kind of silence like instantly in the nick of time, and that is just not possible here. You have to BKB it off. Even though it's not a usual Juggernaut, I mean, you can't BKB anything off if you get axe caught by Duckflinger, who has a double kill now, and he is just obliterating this game. You can't get away from this Duckflinger axe. I called it out during the draft, okay, well, Bogged Finance does get called out. He tried to steal a Meat Hook, stole Rot. This is the steal of shame. When you had this spell, everyone knows that you got greedy and tried to steal Pudge Hook, which you should really never get. You should always get this spell and feel a bit bad about trying. But, yeah, he's able to go for that kind of steal because his cores are just dominating so hard. Like, I mean, the Juggernaut is the most farmed hero on the map, that's true, but you saw how little that mattered when he got called by Duckflinger in front of the rest of the team in the Tier 1 tower. He just died instantly. And, you can't win a team fight when 9,000 net worth just vanishes from the map in front of your eyes like that. Basically with no reprise. Duckflinger has just been so competent at playing this axe over multiple series, I really feel like this should be a priority ban target. Oh, who knows what goes on in the minds of these players when they draft? Maybe this axe is a hero that's so traumatizing, the Duckflinger axe, that they just try and forget all about it. They bury it too deep, and then they can't remember about the threat of Duckflinger's axe to ban it in the actual banning phase. Now, though, the Dire find themselves in a very difficult situation. I mean, they've got RP up. They could smoke and try and find a pick-off. If you kill, say, Yarak, it's not like the end of the game or anything, but it is pretty cool. It would, you know, give you a bit of a morale boost. It would give you a window to try and take Roshan or force a buyback. And, okay, now they're going to go for it, finally. They may just have been waiting on a smoke of some kind. Oh no, they're pinging the triangle, but Vorkor just left the triangle. I don't know whether there's no ward or anything seeing this, so this was just good gamer instincts, and instead it's going to be Kage S tanking the gank. Tanking the gank he will. The spin for the Juggernaut saves him from being stunned by the Chain Impact. Still a disaster for a teamfight they initiated with a smoke. That's a really bad sign. He just can't get the job done. He's still the top net worth even after dying twice, which is a testament to Miley's farm speed. I mean, it is a little bit cheating to play, you know, the Battle Fury Jug against Blade Mail Spectre. But even then, the raw damage output and the powerful disable from the Duckflinger axe is just making all that farm irrelevant. And speaking of irrelevant, Quap's Blink irrelevant in the face of extremely crispy Outworld Devourer Astral Hammer timing. So, right now, I feel like the Dire are trying to go back to the drawing board here. But unfortunately, for the paid actors, there's not really any place to go. That's a good hook on Bogged Finance. That'll teach you to try and steal hook. There's only one Hookmeister in town, dude. Get used to it. Yeah, well, unfortunately for you and your Pudge, aside from that hook, not a lot of good is going on for you to get used to. Pretty much just all bad, actually, at this point. This OD is very fat. It's about to have an Aghanim Scepter, which is, you know, the improvement to imprisonment. What can Miley buy? He's still got, or they still have, rather, I should say, the Manta queued up here. He's going to buy the ultimate orb now, which is something. But, as I was mentioning, don't know how much that does for you. It allows you to push out lanes and such, but it's not as though the Dire seemed that concerned with it. Like, if they really wanted to push in the lanes more aggressively, there have been opportunities to do that. But they've been making all their plays on the heroes first, and it just has not been working out, as the Dire reinforce each other beautifully and leverage their very powerful heroes currently and later in... Oh! Bogged Finance goes to the lift on but it's not to initiate on him, it's to initiate in the middle lane. Great Banish manages to negate the friendly hook, and Obio Yolo dies of the imprisonment and damage. Now Duckflinger, I can't sping his praises enough. Duckflinger gets onto those Dire heroes who are just standing around wondering what they maybe could have done to save their mid. They don't have time to ponder that quandary because they are dead. Duckflinger chops one, chops two. 4 Dire heroes in the ground. 8,000 gold lead to the Radiant. I'm not saying they'll call GG, but I've known teams to call GG early on when they find themselves in this kind of position. It seems like no matter what they try and do, it doesn't work out, and they are punished so immediately and so severely, it really must wear on the soul a little bit. Still, they play on. They're without a tier 2 now in the middle lane, but everyone's respawning, so it's unlikely we'll see a high ground attempt now. Can they do Roche? Okay, looks like we might see a repeat of Series 1 with the leading team, in this case LoonyMelb, just establishing base camp outside the Dire high ground and sitting on it. But even then, they're not very committed to it. Many of them are falling back here. And they might get caught anyway. Here comes the punch around the corner. He's revealed the smokes up. Duckflinger sees everything, but Duckflinger doesn't change trajectories in time. Defensive imprisonment, followed by the offensive imprisonment. That's going to buy a lot of room. Okay, and Duckflinger, he's in the back line, gets the taunt off. It's not his best taunt, but you know what? It doesn't have to be. Although, actually, no, wait. It might have to be. There's mutual deaths going on both sides. The OD is down. Huge kill. We're starting to see this Juggernaut have an impact. He avoided being in the part of the fight where the Axe Call went off, and that quick Omni Slash fired off, secures the kill onto the OD. The Grimstroke already dead. Okay. Ultimately, there's no escape for Ninja Monkey's Dazzle. So only the Jug is the official survivor here.
Dire's bottom tower is under attack.
Meanwhile, Vorkwar will line up on the Roshan now that it's basically uncontested. The only thing left is, like... yeah, this guy. Who has finished the Manta for what it's worth. It's just not doing a lot. You know, Spectre's had a Manta for a very long time. But on Spectre, that item is way better, especially when you consider the build. On Jug, I guess the item is fine. This item's pretty good on every hero, though. The Aegis of the Immortal has been picked up by the Rubik. Sorry, by the Spectre while the Rubik Watch is on. The Rubik has found the spider legs that just popped up. But he's going for a Yules next to complement the Blink Dagger and Aether Lens. Really overburdened Rubik carrying all these items. Not used to seeing the hero multiple slotted early on. And unfortunately, Bog Finance is tilted because they are dewarded. But yeah, I mean, the Dire, look, they're moving as a group, which makes them safe right now. But when you move as a group like that, like, you are falling behind second by second. That's why they just had to split up again. They look very confused as to how to approach the map right now, and I don't fully blame them.
It's not in my nature, but
It's a bit sad that I have to keep hearing, you know, every time I hear the sound of skewer, I click like, oh my god, who's dying? Who got skewered right now? But no, it's just Lust farming, which is fair enough, but, ooh. So we're now waiting for the next core item on someone. I mean, Spectre is still a ways off having this completed Abyssal if that's what she truly wants. Duckfling's going BKB, which I wouldn't mind seeing multiple of their heroes get. Certainly the Dire should be getting BKBs, one would imagine, but it's a question of can they afford them. QUT went Aeon Disc instead. Dazzle can't afford it. Pudge can't really afford it. Okay, so it's really... okay, that explains a lot. No one on this team has a pipe because no one can afford that sort of thing, goddammit. That's expensive. See, this looks like a smoke movement, but they're not moving in smoke, they're just running around as a group. This is how you go from being 12,000 gold behind to 20,000 gold behind, fellas. And so, having failed to locate anything in bottom lane of interest much at all, they're just going to nuke the couple of creep camps there and walk off again. Oh, spinning. Okay. Okay, Miley on the jug has... Nope, just flame him. I mean, this Spectre still has this Aegis. That's the crazy thing. Vorkor hasn't died. Not even Aegis died. This Aegis is going to just expire and be a farming Aegis soon enough. And while viable and kind of cool, does seem like a little bit of a waste. Oh, wait. Finally, we see some action. As it's just Duckflinger, you know, doing as Duckflinger does. Finds Ninja Monkey. Gets a quick kill. The rest of the team run back to base, but wait, Duckflinger's not done. That is a really, really nice taunt. Gets the Berserker's Call thanks to the Z-axis. It looked like it should be way out of range, but it was just in range thanks to how stairs interact or don't with Dota spells. And now, Yarak with the long-range Astral Imprisonment into the long-range Meteor Hammer with the Aether Lens both times. No, they fall back. They fall back. No need to be diving like that. Oh no, Luz goes down already to Vorkor. That... wait, is that... no, okay, the Magnus does have buyback, but still... the Juggernaut appears not to. So even a Magnus buyback might not do it. It might have to be... ooh. As we drop even more Meteor Hammers on this stuff. Just trying to get it killed, and so it does. Oh, the Aegis expires! I was about to say, why are we falling back so quickly on the Radiant? But no, they are smart. The Aegis is expiring, and they know that it's about to go. So they leave. They would just... ooh. And so the game will continue for a while more. I was really getting hyped for the game to, like, end one way or another right there. But instead, we return to our previously scheduled Farm Fiesta. I wonder what Duckflinger is going to buy next. Maybe like a Crimson Guard type thing. As we see another smoke. Down 15,000 gold now. You get the sense this might be kind of a last hurrah. Of course, there's no obligation to give up if some particular play goes wrong. But, like, the logic would probably go, if you can't get this right, when do you get it right, you know? But unfortunately, they're not going to find anybody. The Raiden have all just kind of sniffed it out and drifted top. Very unfortunate. And so instead we just get to watch these people all continue to farm. Expect to have the Ags? No. Okay. Just have weird double haunt illusions. So now we are sitting on the cusp of the dire high ground. The gold lead is at 70k and slowly ticking up as they're starved of resources and forced to kill just the mega creeps that arrive in their base. But still, there should probably be a moment to pick at some point in the near future. It's just not this moment. The Radiant have fallen all the way back. All the way back to the mid-river. Not interested. Not getting jumped on. Not giving up our lead, thank you. We're 17,000 gold ahead. We're going to keep it that way. That's what they're saying. Until the opportunity arises. Duckflinger thinks he's found it. He spots the QUT. Obia Yulu sitting there farming creeps, but there's no support. Duckflinger can't go it alone. Instead, they want to turn on heroes that are coming up to help contribute. And they find the Magnus. The Magnus blinks on him. But Duckfinger is so practiced that he just effortlessly escapes. I don't mind this Pudge build, it's just not doing enough for the team right now. This is what happens when your opponent has, like, mobile cores. Lots and lots of pressure on Luz right now. He did kind of sign up for this by playing Magnus, but his team picked Magnus for him. Presumably on his instructions, so we'll see. We will see how this goes. See how the Jug's doing. Yeah, Jug's getting close to selling off some of those smaller items. Maybe you can sell them the Lifesteal Mask, although I wouldn't be surprised. Either way. Oh, actually, here we go. No, it's just creeps. There's nothing really going on right now. They're just farming and farming and farming here on LoonyMelb's side. I guess they're trying to get an item on the Spectre, or maybe they're trying to get a certain level on the Rubik. It's really hard to tell. But, yeah, suffice to say, they're not excited about the idea of going high ground and failing it. I think they're a bit spooked by how almost bad that last engagement went. Okay, the Magnus misses a skewer. This would be really good if anyone gets over here. But the OD has realized almost immediately that there's no one over here. Please fall on deaf ears. Bogged Finance was having a great game earlier, but now just kind of like walking around farming a few creep camps to the best of his ability. Okay, they finally recapped their own outpost. They're pinging for the Roche. Or at least, maybe they're pinging the Radiant are doing Roche. There's the Spectre Haunt. It goes in deep. Catches them. The Radiant try to lap around to the back line, but the BKB and in time the Banish are going to keep them alive for now. Oh, that's a nice little Soulbind, but QUT just kind of hops out of it real quick. Miley can't. And is destroyed by the Sanity's Eclipse. Damn. And so now it looks like the Roshan is just a formality. It's nothing we didn't expect, but it's still brutal to have watch happen. Oh, Rubik stole the hook, so there's something, but no. Come on, just pushing it in. Let's see this end. Let's see game 1 end. Yarak, Vorkor, friends, Romans, countrymen, boring down on top lane, bearing down with all sorts of rules and things. Trying to get a second lane of racks. It looks like they're just going to get it pretty much uncontested. At this point in the game, I don't blame Pathfinder. Oh, goes in deep. And, oh no, okay, wait, was that a miss? Axe chop? Axe is so deep right now. Duckflinger, if he's ever gonna die in the middle of a team fight, if he's ever bitten off more than his shoe, it would be right now. In fact, Luz can't afford to line up the skewer, has to just skewer back to the fountain for safety. This is the danger of going in deep with both of these heroes, but it's Luz who are gonna feel the danger more, because once Duckflinger is out of the fight, officially, he just turns around and hits some buildings and gets a quick building kill and a quick hero kill with his... Oh! They're going back in. It was just a fake back. Vorkor, he's tapping away. Okay, no, this has got to be it, right? This is just over. Pudge has already died back. There's 2 more heroes with buyback, eclectic buyback status. The Magnus, he's banished in the middle of the team. That buys them time to finish off Ninja Monkey. In fact, it buys them as much time as they like, because the Magnus is dead as well. And there's the GG call, finally at 40 minutes. They played it out. That's something that can be said. Credit to the paid actors of USYD. They did play out that game 1. But unfortunately, much like the earlier games in our series, just some really, really disciplined, straightforward Dota being played. Season early lead, never give it up. This Axe pick, man, is proving so dynamic in so many of the games. Duckflinger, of course, has played it before, even on this stream. But that was a particularly gross game for trying to farm through that perimeter that was established. I don't know what the answer is. Whether they need to be even more committed to being able to, like, blow up and punish random heroes that are just taking up the map space like that, or whether they need some specific axe counter, like maybe a Bloodseeker. It was banned in that game, though. So, you know, the USYD Paid Actors, they're back to the drawing board, and so are we. We will return soon after this break with more Australian Esports Uni League Dota 2. everyone. This is the Wandering Bard back here again for for the University League with UOM LoonyMelb, and USYD Paid Actors. Now, you may have noticed some disruption to the cast at the end of the last cast, or indeed slightly more spotty throughout the rest of the cast. That wasn't just audio lag or anything else. We're having a little bit of technical caster difficulties, a few health problems on this end, and as a result, I've had a quick chat with the producers. We're not able to bring you the last game of the series tonight, of the planned games we were bringing you between USYD and LoonyMelb. Those may be rebroadcast at a short future time by myself or a different caster. If not, then my sincere apologies to those fans, as well as to our sponsors, both our hardware sponsors, AOC and RIG, and of course our food and beverage sponsors, Indomie and Chatime. It's not something we aspire to, and hopefully just a one-off. But we appreciate your patronage, of course. Thank you for tuning in tonight and watching these teams play their hearts out. It's been really great Dota throughout. Obviously, really important matches as well. We're seeing the meta evolve in this new Dawnbreaker patch. I'm excited to get back to these teams in future weeks. But for now, that is all the Dota we'll be bringing you, just to preserve the integrity of the stream. So this will be me signing out for the night, the Wandering Bard. Thanks for watching, everybody, and we hope to see you here on the Uni League Dota 2 stream very soon.